What's going on, boys and girls? Welcome to your May 30th, excuse me, edition of the Winged Eagle podcast. How are you guys doing? Happy weekend as we close out the month of May and head into the summertime here. I hope you guys are all doing wonderfully. We've got a jam-packed, loaded episode. I've got so many notes. We got a lot of news. All of the TV shows this week across the two companies were eventful. Lots to talk about. A couple of title changes. A lot of news. Storylines, controversial stuff, all sorts of goodies to get into in this episode. So it should be a lot of fun. I want to thank everybody that's in here so far, including my man, Devlin Husband, that just popped in with a $10 super chat right off the bat. I'll answer that in just a second, brother. And it's been a fun week, hasn't it, in the world? Especially on social media, especially on the news, especially everywhere. So hopefully this podcast will offer a nice distraction from all of that. For the third consecutive weekend, you guys are going to get me on 3 straight days. I've got this podcast, of course, coming up right now. Tomorrow is a brand new Patreon-sponsored review, which I'm really excited to release. It's finished and ready to go. I'm going to premiere it at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It'll be 1 p.m. on the East Coast if you live here in the States, so keep that in mind for tomorrow. And then Monday night, of course, immediately following Raw, I'll be up here again for a full live review. So you got 3 days of me again. Should be a lot of fun. And I'm going to have a couple of other video dates for you probably on Monday night. So we got a lot to do in the next few days with each other, and we're going to be hanging out, having a good time. Should be a blast. Like I said, this episode is jam-packed. News to discuss, including WWE banning a move. They've let go a writer. There's some Ric Flair news. Drew Gulak is back. Matt Riddle has jumped to Smackdown. Andrade lost the U.S. title to Apollo on Raw. Samoa Joe's permanently replacing Jerry Lawler. We've got an updated Backlash card. NXT and AEW were both very good this week, but I think one show was significantly better. We got a couple of tournament finals set. Lots going on. So, and we had a hilarious Fast Times at Ridgemont High spoof last night, which I was absolutely tickled with when I saw that. SmackDown last night was actually not too bad. I enjoyed it for the most part, although there's a couple things I didn't, and we'll talk about the whole Jeff Hardy angle here in just a little bit when we get into SmackDown. So it's going to be a long episode. I've got nowhere to be. I'm off. I'm trying to take Saturdays off here for a little while until things get back to normal. Once I go back to work permanently on Saturdays, the podcast will probably be pushed back a couple of hours, and I'll do it earlier on in the day. But for right now, it's still going to be 5 p.m. on the West Coast, so keep that in mind. Like I said, 3 big videos coming up the next 3 days in a row. I also want to do a couple of additional shout outs here. I want to shout out the patrons right now, and then I got a couple of extra plugs that I want to do for you guys before we jump into the news and before I knock out the 3 or 4 super chats that are rolling in here. So as always, my patrons, dudes, thank you so much. Couldn't do this without you. I genuinely appreciate all of your support going out to Alex Reynolds, Barry MK400, Big Mike's Wrestling Recap, Blake Moran, Brandon Yelverton, Claudio Clavedetcher, Damanian Elwell Sr., Daniel Rodriguez, Devlin, my husband, Jimmy Anderson, Jordan Carg, John Riffle, John Redford, Josiah Blevins, K-Dog's Kennel, Keith Salyers, Michael Kuma, who I think is also here in the chat, Michael Tong, Mr. Steve, Nathan Walker, Nick Musser, Reese Jones, Ryan Y, Scott Moss, Scotty Kira, the Double Z TV, and Steve Myers. You guys are the best. I know you guys hear those names every week, but you know what? They're big supporters, and they deserve the shout-outs. All of my top patrons that have donated $10 a month or $200 or more lifetime, they're also shouted out in the description below, along with a couple of links. I want to shout out my friend Dan Price, who I've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast before. He's done a lot of fan art for me, put together some nice AEW font logos, and I think he did the SummerSlam one maybe. He's really done some great work just out of the goodness of his heart. Every few months, I just check my email, and he's got some other cool logo in there for me. Well, he's an artist, and he writes and draws comics kind of when time permits. And he used to work in the industry and took some time off to raise a family and is kind of getting back into it. And he has an Instagram that I would like you to check out and that he would like me to share. I've put the link to it right in the description below. It's right at the top. So if you want to check out his work, he's got some pretty cool stuff. Unfortunately, I'm not a comic book fan, and I don't know a lot of the characters, but you know, some of the artwork, I saw a Deadpool picture in there, which was just phenomenal. So he has got a lot of artistic talent. He's been great to the channel and a great supporter. So check out Dan. I would very much appreciate that. And check out one of our YouTube wrestling colleagues, OK Fabe. Connor is kind of transitioning away from wrestling a little bit, and he started a new YouTube channel that's not going to be wrestling related. A lot of people in the community love Connor. We all interact with him on social media and Twitter. He's a great guy. So go check out his new channel. The link to that is also in the description below. Check it out. Show him some love. And if it's something that you think you might be interested in, maybe you can stick around and listen to his new podcast that apparently covers all sorts of topics, just not wrestling. So you can check that out if you're interested. He's always a good person to me, and go show him some love. So that pretty much knocks out the plugs and all the things I wanted to talk about there. We'll dive into the news, but before we do that, let me just cruise up here, acknowledge the 100 or so folks that are in here in the chat right now, knock out a couple of supers, and then we're going to get into the news, and we're going to start with WWE's big news of banning the Buckle Bomb, which, honestly, it's about fucking time. And I think that might have been sparked by yet another injury that took place at the Raw tapings that I think airs Monday, involving Nia Jax and Kairi Sane and that whole delightful situation. So we're going to open with that. But first, let me say hi to Devlin. Good to see you, man. Thank you for the $10. Very good week for wrestling. All 4 shows were very good. And my only real complaint was the ending to Dynamite. Didn't like it at all. Yeah, I think you told me that. And I'm going to get into Dynamite. I wasn't a huge fan of that either. You know, I think it's going to kind of get them like some publicity and stuff, but it was like 1998 relived. And to be honest, I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag here because I know I pick which show I like better every week when I talk about AEW and NXT, but I liked NXT far better this week. I think they had the better show, and they still lost in the ratings by about 100,000 viewers, but I think NXT was better this week. And I thought AEW would be coming off a pay-per-view, but it was kind of the other way around. So you just never know on Wednesdays, which is why Wednesdays are so cool. You know, in my mind, these two companies trade victories every week, at least from an enjoyment factor. Maybe the ratings don't reflect that. AEW is mostly dominant, but for me, I swear it's like split. You know, half the weeks I like NXT better, half the week I like, or half the times I like AEW. So I'm liking the seesaw battle that they're having. At least for me, it's making for entertaining television. Joey G, man, good to see you, man. Yeah, long time no see. Thank you, man, for the $5. Appreciate it. Long time no see. Just got out of basic training. Holy shit, that's right. I remember you telling us that. Haven't watched your podcast since January. Hope everything's going good for you, bro. Yeah, we're hanging in there. You haven't watched since January, so of course we've had the whole COVID thing. I hope that went well, man. Welcome back, or at least welcome back into the fold a little bit here. And I hope you've been surviving everything as well. And congrats on finishing basic training. I know that ain't easy, and I know it would kill me on day 2. So the fact that you survived months of that, you're the man. You're the man. Crash, thanks, man. Appreciate the $2. Can you and Solomonster do a collab video? Maybe one day. We were going to film something on the Jericho cruise, and it was just so much go, 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 go. Never really had a chance to pin him down or pin each other down and do anything like that. But maybe in the future. I had some time during the pandemic and stuff. I should have tried to do some Skype calls or some Zoom recordings and put it up on the channel. I really kind of had that in the back of my mind, but just never pulled the trigger, and that's my fault. I apologize. If I ever had a chance to do a collab, it was probably in the past couple of months. And like an idiot, I didn't do anything. George Morris, good to see you as well, man. Appreciate the $2. How are you doing? I am doing wonderfully. I hope you're doing well too. George, skin cancer treatment is going good. Be safe, Greg. Well, I'm glad to hear that, George. Really glad to hear that. Please keep us posted on that, and good luck with that. And I'm glad that so far all the news you've given us has been good news. Let me see. Did I miss anybody else other than Devlin popping in again? All right. I think that's the last one. Devlin, thank you for another $10. Here's some cruise money. You are now required to attend the cruise. I'll tell you what, it was tempting because I'm getting the emails for the Jericho cruise, the triple whammy. And so far, there's only 3 pieces of talent, and they're not the biggest and most attractive pieces, but still ones that I wouldn't mind meeting. They've got the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. For some reason, the cruise director is Candice Michelle, who I never disliked, but never liked either. I'm kind of indifferent to her, so she's kind of a strange choice to be the cruise director as well. So only 3 pieces of talent have been announced for the cruise so far. Probably 24 more will be announced, and I'm sure some people will drop off and be replaced. And there's going to be a lot of changes to this as we get closer to January. And, you know, when I get the emails, and Devlin was telling me that now the alcohol package is free, for you know, people that went last year or something like that, and that's a huge saving. That's like $500. It's tempting, man. I just don't know where things are going to be next year in terms of the COVID. I got WrestleMania here in LA, at least we hope. I've got a Hawaii trip next year. Don't know if I can find the time off, or affordability would be smart to spend that kind of money or what, but damn, it is tempting. We'll see, man. You never know. We'll see. I'm going to give it to the summer and see what else is added for that, but cruise ships are kind of not where you want to be during virus times and pandemics and stuff. They're kind of floating petri dishes, but, you know, it might be worth it because it was a hell of a time, man. We'll see, Devlin. We will see. If not, I'll give you a refund. All right. That knocks out the chats that are super. Let's get into the news, and we're going to start with that news of the Buckle Bomb being banned. Some internal memo, or I think, no, this is I forgot who reported this. I don't know if it was Meltzer or if this is a memo that was leaked. But anyway, WWE is no longer going to allow that move to be performed in the ring, which is good because we've seen several injuries. The most notable was Sting a few years back when Seth nailed him with, I think, a couple of them, and it pretty much ended Sting's career. Kairi Sane was injured a couple of weeks ago by Nia Jax, kind of doing the same thing, but, you know, really aggressively throwing her down to not even in the top buckle. She landed more like on the second and the bottom one, and it was just a bad-looking bump. So WWE has now said no more buckle bombs, and you know what? I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. That is a move that has a history of being dangerous. You know, I think the pile driver should be allowed because if you're a wrestler, you know how to execute the pile driver correctly, and you shouldn't really hurt anybody. Only, like 1 in a million, like we've seen at SummerSlam 97. But for the most part, if you know what you're doing, you should be able to do the pile driver, where the buckle bomb, it's kind of unpredictable when you let the guy go. So or girl go. So I'm glad that they're kind of going to ban that. And there is some speculation that there might have been a similar move performed that we're going to see this week on Raw at the Raw tapings. Nia Jax took on Kairi Sane in a match. That match airs Monday, I believe. And Kairi was injured again by Nia Jax. And apparently this time she took a shot on the steps on the outside of the ring. So if it turns out to be a similar bump, because we haven't seen it, and I know with Nia's track record of already hurting people are just really ready to jump up her ass and immediately say she's unsafe. She very well may be. But until we see it, we're really not going to know. But if it turns out that this was another buckle bomb situation where she's got Kairi up in the air and she tossed her into the steps and she gashed her head open, apparently the match had to be stopped while they dealt with the blood. I'm sure on Monday they're going to have to edit the shit out of this thing to make it presentable for TV. So we'll see if they even show the move or if they edit completely out, because they might edit it completely out. Or they might keep the bump in. I don't know. If we get to see the bump, then we'll be able to really decide if Nia was being a reckless asshole again, or if this was just, kind of a random injury that could have happened to anybody. But knowing Nia's track record, I'm sure the fans are not going to accept any other explanation other than she was unsafe, and that is that. We'll find out Monday. But in the meantime, at least, that's probably a positive step that was made, banning that move. Just really no need for it. They also let go a writer, Chris DeJoseph, who was released. Now, he was the guy that did the Big Dick Johnson gimmick years ago and would dress in a bow tie and Speedo and oil himself up and dance around. He left WWE, went to go work for Lucha Underground and MLW, I believe, and then he came back to WWE, was recently promoted, and now released. And apparently, according to the reports, the release had nothing to do with COVID. So whatever he has to do next, or whatever the reason for that was, I don't know, but we wish him luck. Hope everything works out for him and he can land on his feet somewhere else. Here's a story that didn't surprise me at all. I'm surprised it hasn't been revealed yet, but Ric Flair has finally come to an agreement with WWE to sell the trademark The Man. Big surprise, right? Of course he did. Of course he sold it. Flair is Flair. To me, Flair is like The Undertaker. They're such legends. I'm going to give him a pass on pretty much everything, but Ric Flair and his management of money has always irked me. And the fact that WWE has always been so good to him, and the fact that he's always fucking broke. And then when Becky Lynch started using The Man, after everything WWE has done for that man, he has the nerve to get pissed and demand compensation for her using that moniker and all of that, and it caused this whole deal. And basically Ric Flair just wants money. So I knew in the end this was going to lead to WWE saying, look, if we give you some money, will you shut the fuck up about it, please? And that's pretty much what happened here. Ric Flair got paid, and now WWE does own the trademark The Man, and now Becky Lynch can use it free and clear, and they can do whatever else they want with it. And Flair got his money just like he set out to do. And apparently he's even signed some sort of a new deal that will keep him in WWE until the day he dies. So, like I said, we can criticize WWE all we want about their business practices and some of the things they do. One person that they've always done right by is Ric Flair. They've always done right by him, and I've always almost taken it personally when he is mad at them. After he fucking had that match with Shawn and then he went to TNA for more money, he would jump right over there to AEW if the price is right. And he's got himself in a good position that even at 80 years old or whatever he is, he still can use another company as a bargaining chip to get himself some money from WWE, just so they don't have to lose him to AEW, and Ric Flair ends his career and possibly maybe even passes away as an AEW contracted wrestler. That's probably not what WWE wants, and they're willing to pay to make that happen. So Ric Flair has always been, I think, financially compensated well by WWE, and I was kind of a little bit disgusted that he got mad about that man thing. To me, I think he had no leg to stand on. He should have been cooler. He should have understood that WWE's probably given him a lot of money over the years, helping him out of situations and, maybe signing him to deals just so he can, be paid and have money coming in, and to then raise a stink about that. I just kind of thought that was kind of shitty. But anyway, it's a dead issue now. WWE owns it. Flair's got his money, and we can all move on with our lives. And also, Drew Gulak, very pleasantly surprised to hear that he is back with the company after just a couple of weeks off. contract negotiations, I think, apparently broke down, which is why they announced that he was released or they weren't going to re-sign him. They picked up negotiations again, came to a deal. According to Meltzer, it's a multi-year deal, and Drew Gulak was back on SmackDown last night competing in the Battle Royal. So really cool to see him back, and now that he's signed a multi-year deal, hopefully they can kind of either resume what he was doing with Daniel Bryan or move him on to something meaningful now that they're actually, he's contractually there and they've got him to a deal. Don't waste your money. Do something with him. The dude's kind of good. You know what I mean? That pretty much wraps it up with the news. We'll touch about some internal TV news as we go through Raw, NXT, and Dynamite and SmackDown. But that's all I've really got here for that. Let me knock out a couple of more supers that are flying in from somebody. Where are you? Vontae, good to see you, man. And Level. Oh, man, let me get back to these here. Apologize, guys. Hey, Level, let's start with you, man. Thank you for the $10. I really appreciate that. What's up, Greg? Hope all is well. Even at 53, Mike Tyson could kick some ass. Stay safe and healthy. Yeah, he does look good. I mean, I felt like he was washed up years ago. I mean, he quit in that one fight right at the end, But some of the videos we've seen of him, I mean, for a 53-year-old, he can throw. I mean, back in the day, back in the 90s, George Foreman came back and won the title in his 50s, didn't he? I don't think Tyson can be winning titles, and they've even teased a match with Tyson Fury, and that's going to be insane. But now he might actually get in the ring and have a wrestling match. That's something that WWE never accomplished, but I don't know how good it can be. And yeah, we'll see what Mike Tyson does. We're going to talk a lot about him when we get into the AEW portion of this, because I've got some opinions on the Tyson stuff. Vontae, man, good to see you, man. Appreciate the $9.99. What's up, family? Hey, Greg, what do you think of the new Nation-type faction with MVP, Lashley, Street Profits with Belair, and Apollo with MVP as the voice of the group? You think that's a good idea? I'm down with it. I've always wanted to see some sort of maybe not like a carbon copy of what the Nation of Domination was, but some sort of stable similar to it or whatever. And I remember years ago when the New Day was debuting, that's kind of what we thought it was going to be. And it turned out to be the complete opposite. I mean, their stable is absolutely nothing like the Nation of Domination at all. But we kind of thought they would be. So MVP's got that voice. He's got that. He probably is a better mouthpiece, honestly, than Ron Simmons was for the Nation. The Rock, of course, was a great one, but Simmons was awesome and he was scary, and you believed him when he was talking shit to you, but I think MVP maybe articulates better and is a better overall mouthpiece for a stable. So yeah, I'm into that idea, but you'd have to turn a lot of guys. You'd be turning Street Profits and Bianca and Apollo. So that's a lot of turns. I could see Apollo joining. I could definitely see Apollo joining and turning heel. I kind of thought he would do that if he fell short against Andrade on Monday. But the Profits, they would have to go in a very severely different direction, and I think WWE still likes using them in that babyface way, in the more entertainment type of way, where they're having fun, where if they go in that direction, they're going to have to completely change their demeanor. They can't be out there bouncing around being all happy. They got to be a little bit more hard-nosed, and because MVP doesn't want a lot of that. He doesn't want a lot of that goofy shit in his faction, so they're going to have to tone it down, and I don't think WWE wants to do that with them. Same goes with Bianca Belair, so I don't know if they fit. I think maybe leave Street Profits and Bianca out and maybe replace them with something else or with somebody else, and then it might work. But I'm into it for sure. Thanks again, Vontae. Devlin, appreciate it. Thank you for the $5. Let me go ahead and just block you so you can never come back. I'm kidding. Big Dick Johnson over Bret Hart. Okay, that would be a good match. Zane, what's up, man? Appreciate the $10 as well. Would you be able to do a what-if concept where you would discuss scenarios that would not happen, results, and aftermath? For example, what would have happened if Hogan never slammed Andre? I like stuff like that. If Hogan never slammed him, I'm guessing you mean at WrestleMania 3, does he still beat him? Like when you say slam, does the match still happen? Does Hogan still win? The body slam to me was the icing on the cake. Prior to the match, during the build, as a kid, Hogan body slamming him wasn't in my head. I wasn't even thinking that. I was just like, is Hogan going to go down? A lot of people were like, this is it for Hogan. He's not going to beat Andre. So the slam caught me almost off guard. So if he didn't slam him, but he still leg dropped and pinned him, I think the same effect would be had, but that body slam just made the most iconic image. There's just still something about that when I see Hogan with that tree trunk over his head. It's crazy looking, just such a visual, especially for that time. I cannot describe the feeling it gave me as a kid to see that happen. But yeah, I'm into those type of scenarios. We'll do a fun live stream one night. We can do a whole bunch of those. We can try to get them all written down or lined up, and we'll start knocking them out. I'm into that idea. All right, I think we're good for the chats that are super for the moment. Let's move on now to some of the stuff I want to talk about. I did, of course, my Raw review this past Monday, so if you guys want to check that out, you can. It's up on the channel right now, but I do want to mention just a couple of quick things about Monday Night Raw. Number one, it was reported earlier this week by Dave Meltzer that Samoa Joe is going to be the permanent replacement for Jerry Lawler on commentary, and I hope that is true. Good. Finally. I can't believe we actually have a color announcer that not only knows the names of the wrestlers, but the moves as well. How lucky are we? Wow. Jerry Lawler, I've been so over him for so many years now. I acknowledge Jerry Lawler as a legend. I think he was very important to Monday Night Raw during the Attitude Era. I was lost without him when he left in 2001 and was replaced by Paul Heyman. Even though Heyman was great, there was that void. Lawler was there. Him and Ross were the voice of the WWE at that time. They were the modern day Gorilla and Jesse. He was so important to that show, and I loved Lawler back in the day. But as the times changed, Lawler did not. And he stayed with the same cheesy nonsense, the same cheesy bullshit, to where it just got less and less and less funny. And then when you fast forward all the way to present day, now he's kind of a little bit out of touch to where he's calling matches of wrestlers who he's never seen before, and he's naming things ramen noodle moonsaults and stuff because he just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing or talking about. I'm at the point where I need this guy removed away from me. He does nothing for me. He doesn't better the show at all, and he's just not what you need out there. But they have him out there anyway when they have lots of other announcers who aren't even working right now because there's no spots for him. Lawler's taken up one, and he doesn't know what he's doing. Samoa Joe has always been good in his little commentary roles. A lot of fans have been calling him to be a permanent announcer somewhere. And at least for now, see, in WWE, permanent means nothing. Samoa Joe could be permanently replacing Jerry Lawler, but permanently could be 8 weeks until they decide to put him back in a match or storyline again. So I'm not going to take permanently to heart. This is, at least for right now, he's going to be the announcer, and that's good because he's better. And he can tell the story better than a 2020 Jerry Lawler. It's just not 20 years ago anymore. So I'm happy with that decision, and that thrills me. Like I said, we saw Apollo win the U.S. title on Monday Night Raw. Great for him. That's where this had to go because he was knocked out of the Money in the Bank match. He injured his knee, came up short, in one of his matches with Andrade. This whole thing was kind of pointing to him eventually getting his day. I'm glad he did. Big win for him. The title looks good on him, doesn't it? I think he looks good with the belt, and I'm curious to see if this will change him at all and if he will maybe go heel. I kind of want to see him do it because so many other baby faces that in my head I don't think would be good heels, they always surprise me. And when you look at Apollo, he's always so damn happy. How can you think of this guy as like a badass? But we got just a glimpse of it a few weeks ago when he just bitch slapped Andrade, and I was like, ooh, I like that. So I wouldn't mind at all seeing him go in the heel direction, even in the middle of his title run. I'd be totally cool with it. So let's hope that Apollo has a meaningful title run and it's not a pile of shit and WWE doesn't ruin the whole thing. But that's a big if. We also saw an Edge promo hyping up the big match versus Randy Orton at Backlash, the greatest wrestling match ever. And we touched on this a little bit on Monday, and I've been bitching about that tagline, the greatest wrestling match ever, when they first announced it, because I'm like, are they stupid? Why would they say this when they know they're going to paint themselves in the corner? And as good as Orton and Edge are, there's absolutely no way they can live up to that expectation. And instead of WWE understanding that, they quadrupled down on the hammering home of that tagline to where finally it hit me. I'm like, oh, it's a fucking rib. No wonder they're going so crazy about this. At least I hope it is, because if WWE really thinks that this thing is going to be better than Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam, they're out of the fucking mind. So I think this is more of a way, and in which case I think it's actually pretty hilarious that WWE has a sense of humor and they don't take themselves as seriously as they seem to sometimes. And they're just fucking with Edge and Orton. Let's just go out there and give them this world's greatest wrestling match ever just so we can entertain ourselves backstage. That's kind of what I think is happening here. Even Randy Orton's been posting stuff on his Instagram with like hashtag what a rib and shit. So I think this might be more of that than WWE actually believing in their empty fucking brainless heads that this thing is actually going to be literally the greatest wrestling match ever. To me, this is an inside joke. To me, when I look at it in the context of that, I kind of think it's funny, and I'm all of a sudden not offended by it anymore. So I'm now interested in the match at Backlash. The tagline doesn't bother me. It's just a joke. I'm moving on from it, and no more being angry when I look at it like that. It's actually kind of funny. We love ribs. Ribbing stories are great, right? So anyway, that's all I wanted to mention about Raw. If you want to hear more of my detailed thoughts on that, just check over to my channel and go back to the most recent video. It's right there for you. Let's talk about, what are we going to do, NXT or AEW first? Let's do NXT, because like I said earlier, I liked NXT more this week. I thought this was a better show, and it surprised me because I did the split screen thing on Wednesday. I've only done this a couple of times on Wednesday nights, but I had Dynamite on one monitor, and I had NXT on another, and I had Dynamite with volume, and I had NXT on mute. So that's how I watched the entire 2 hours, because I thought, coming off Double or Nothing, more important shit would go on Dynamite. Like, I thought there would be more fallout there. So I was like, I'll watch that first, and then I'll, circle back and watch NXT if I missed anything, on mute or whatever. But I kind of wish I would have reversed it, because after I was able to catch up on NXT and watch it again with, sound, I thought it was a much better show. So that's what we're going to start off with here. Let me just double check. Okay, making sure I didn't miss anything else there before I dug deep into these NXT results. So the Drake Maverick saga continues on. He is taking on Jake Atlas and Kushida in that triple threat because they all had a tie in their bracket there. So this is going to be kind of the tiebreaker. The winner is going to advance to take on Phantasma for the Cruiserweight title in the finals of the tournament and in your house. And we had a feeling right from the word go here, right when Drake entered this tournament, and especially when he lost his opening match, I'm like, he's probably going to battle back and get all the way to the finals, at least to the finals, maybe win it. And then maybe if not, it can kind of be like this sad little goodbye for him. And then maybe he can be brought back after the pandemic passes and fans are allowed back or whatever. But there's a lot of speculation that he was either never let go at all, or he was brought immediately back and then they turned it into a storyline, or maybe he really truly is working without a contract right now, and this is like just part of his redemption story. But if he's not working with a contract and he wins the title, is it just like, are they just paying him by appearance? Is he like punching the clock now? Okay, we're just going to pay you for the shows you work or whatever, and you're no longer on salary, or you no longer have your guarantee. I don't know. The whole thing has been strange right from the start. I'm not a really big fan of them incorporating releases into storylines, because then you start questioning if they're legit or not when they're announced and everything. So I still don't even know if he was never released or what the full story here is. But of course, he did win this match, and he now advances to face Phantasma. He wound up winning. He pinned Atlas as Kushida had Atlas in like a cross arm breaker, and Atlas's shoulders are on the mat, and Drake kind of climbs up and puts his arm on him, and the referee counts 3 kind of as he's tapping out at the same time. So a little bit of controversy there, but Drake wins, and it was a big moment for him. And now he goes on to face Phantasma in the finals, and I don't know, I'm kind of almost hoping that maybe there's like some sort of really fun swerve here. It's way out there, but do you think maybe like Drake Maverick could be the one behind the kidnappers thing or something? Because they've been going after Phantasma a lot. I think Phantasma's behind it, to be honest, but wouldn't it be funny if there was some swerve there involved and Drake, thought he was released, or he's currently released, so he's trying to kidnap somebody to get him out of there, so there's now a roster spot for him to be hired back into. I don't know, just a thought or whatever. So now that it's Drake and Phantasma, and this whole like little redemption story for Drake Maverick has been okay, and it's really trying to build sympathy for Drake, but it's been going on for so long, and it's also a little bit confusing to the audience because we don't know what the kayfabe and real deal is. It's almost kind of like wearing out its welcome. So I would like to be punched in the mouth with some sort of crazy swerve where Drake turns heel, and instead of trying to be the sympathetic babyface, which is already kind of wearing out its welcome for me, maybe he goes in the other direction and, he's some sort of evil crazy man that's kidnapping motherfuckers. I don't know. Maybe it's something they can do. Who knows? But what do you think? Now that he's in the finals, does he win the title, or does he lose and have his head hang down and the camera films him doing the walk of shame out the back door? Goodbye, WWE, crying and all that shit. Which one is it? Like, I think it could kind of go either way there. I'm really not sure. And either way, you'd have to assume, because this has been dragging out so long, when Jordan Devlin comes back, then he's going to want his belt back. I think he's already got a belt. Anyway, next up we had, and I'm going to knock out these super chats right when I am done with the NXT stuff here. We had the Gargano Invitational. Johnny Gargano comes out, and he's going to offer somebody in NXT the same opportunity that he was offered years ago. Introduces Adrian Alanis. He's from Evolve. Johnny beats him rather easily in a squash. After the match, we cut to the big screen there, and Keith Lee, I love this. Keith Lee and Mia Yim were doing the Gargano Candice LeRae dinner spoof, so they're at their own house, and they're kind of making fun of them a little bit, and they're doing their thing and they're talking, and Mia Yim like pulls out a flashlight and puts it on her face to kind of simulate the lighting cuts that they were doing, kind of the really evil portions and edits of the Gargano dinner. That was kind of funny that they made fun of that a little bit. And Keith Lee said something about Johnny Gargano being the same size of his action figure, which was hilarious. The whole thing was pretty funny the way they were making fun of it. I liked it a lot. We also had Shotzi Blackheart taking on Raquel Gonzalez. Jesus, bump of the year almost, and we nearly had a fucking fatality here. This was crazy. So anyway, during the match, prior to this crazy bump, Dakota Kai actually jacks Shotzi Blackheart's tank, drives her around the outside of the ring a little bit. We get to this spot where Shotzi is going to go for basically a coffin drop springboard off the top rope onto Raquel on the outside of the ring. And I think Dakota's out there, and Tegan Knox might have been out there by now as well. But she lands terribly. She falls all the way backwards, lands right on the back of her neck, and just folds herself up like an accordion. Just a couple of more inches, or a couple of more degrees of an angle there. She could have landed right on her head and done some extremely not good damage to herself. So the fact that she survived that bump is a miracle. Like I said, Tegan Knox got involved here. Candice LeRae got involved during all the commotion on the outside of the ring, and the ref being distracted. Raquel is able to just basically take Shotzi and just slam her down. She basically pulls her off the top turnbuckle, kind of has her on her shoulders, and just puts her down in a half power bomb, half choke slam type of thing, slams her down, gets the pin, and thank God Shotzi's alive, because that was crazy. I didn't even catch it when I was watching the split screen. I must have been looking away, so I didn't see it until after the fact, and I went back and started watching some of the NXT matches, and I was like, holy shit. So that was scary. Glad she's all right, and surprised too that they put her in a match with Raquel, because they're really building Raquel Gonzalez right now, but we just kind of saw that little personality profile piece on Shotzi last week, so kind of surprised they'd have her lose right after that, but who knows? To me, the bigger story here is she's alive, and that's good. We had Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley taking on Charlotte in a mystery partner, and her mystery partner turned out to be Chelsea Green, who I think is perfect. Absolutely perfect choice there. Big rub for Chelsea. She's hooked up with the Stone dude or whatever, and now she's in the ring with 3 of the top contenders in the entire company. That's a big deal for her. So very cool to see Chelsea Green in that spot. And also I want to shout out Mauro Ranallo, who during the entrance of Io Shirai, very classy tribute to Hana Kimura, acknowledging cyberbullying and encouraging us all to be better. I thought that was very cool that he said something and that WWE gave him the green light to say something. Very cool there. And we would see a tribute last night on Smackdown as well, which I'll mention in a minute. In the end, we see Charlotte pinning Io Shirai with her foot on the ropes, and Charlotte has been losing a couple of matches lately. She lost on SmackDown to Bayley, lost a triple threat thing on Raw, and she went to a double DQ or whatever it was with Io Shirai in NXT a couple of weeks ago. So Charlotte hasn't been winning, and even here she got the win, and she still had her feet up on the ropes. So we'll see what happens at In Your House. I guess that's going to be the triple threat, right? And we'll find out what if Charlotte drops it, how she drops it, and who winds up taking the pin. That's coming up, but at least for here, this was a pretty good outing, I think, for Chelsea Green, and I'm glad that at least if Charlotte won, she's not tapping people out with the figure 8. Tommaso Ciampa was in the ring, squashing poor Leon Ruff. Match only lasted a couple of minutes. Scarlett was out there, kind of scouting, I suppose, Tommaso Ciampa. He's going to be facing Karrion Kross at In Your House, of course. After the match, Karrion shows up on the screen and vows to basically kill Ciampa. I'm really interested just in that match. I feel like that's just going to be a huge kind of monumental statement victory for Karrion, because you know he's going to win that. And Ciampa is such a badass. If he puts him down, like I said this last week, I don't think it's going to be a squash by any means. I think Ciampa's going to get offense in. But still, I think the I think the pin and the finish is going to be decisive. It's not going to be like a quick roll-up or anything like that. I think Karrion's going to put him down, and there's going to be no doubt in the fan's mind that referee's hand's going to come down 3 times. No near fall there. That's kind of what I think they should do here, just to really, launch Karrion into the big time. That's kind of what I'm seeing there. In the main event, this thing was crazy. This was the Fight Pit match between Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher. Kurt Angle has also been brought back, another guy that was included in all of those releases. He was going to be the special referee in this thing, and that was kind of comforting to see Kurt Angle back. I was happy. I felt bad for him that he kind of got let go. Not that he wouldn't be okay, just that I liked seeing him on TV. I like Kurt Angle. He's such a goofy son of a bitch, and I didn't want him to have to go. So it's kind of good to see him back in the mix here. It was interesting how they did the match, because we were wondering if it was going to be like the Lion's Den, the Owen Hart and Shamrock match from back in the day, and I think they've done one other one. But what they did is they transformed the ring. So they took the ropes and the turnbuckles off the ring posts, basically like, when they've done the sumo match a couple of times. I think back to like the Akabono and Big Show match at WrestleMania. They also did Earthquake and Yokozuna on Raw, where they just took down all the ropes, and the ring looked very weird that way. But what that means is with the ropes gone, they can now wrap the cage right around the ring, so there's no ropes in between that and the steel. And there's also a platform around the perimeter of the ring as well, where you can get up there and like walk around. The Lion's Den match was a lot like that as well. I think you can get up there and move around if you wanted to. So they had all sorts of room to have fun here, and they did. This was a hard-hitting fucking encounter. Lots of good spots in this. At one point, Matt Riddle hits the floating bro from the top. Beautifully executed, lands right on Timothy Thatcher. They do the teeth spot where Thatcher takes a kick to the face and spits out a couple of chiclets. To me, that looked kayfabed as hell. But I don't know. A lot of people thought it was a legitimate, tooth loss there, but I have my suspicions. Either way, it was still just a brutal, brutal match, and these two guys just beat the shit out of each other. In the end, this was, I guess, kind of a surprise, but not really when you look at it. Matt Riddle passes out in a rear naked choke. Timothy Thatcher got the win. That's a huge win. And Matt Riddle caught the surprise roll-up on him in their first encounter, so he kind of got his win back there and won decisively, putting him down in the cage fight. And now the speculation was that Matt Riddle lost that match because he's going to be called up to the main roster and debut on Smackdown, and that's exactly what happened. And we would see Kurt Angle make the announcement last night on Smackdown that Matt Riddle was on his way. So he put over Thatcher on his way out. Thatcher can be the new badass in town in NXT for a while. And when you think about it, it's time. Matt Riddle has been there nearly 2 years, right? I watched him wrestle at TakeOver in Staples in 2018. That was a year and a half ago, and I think he was signed for a few months by then. So he's really done all he can do in NXT, aside from win the title. I kind of thought he would be NXT champion, and they would put him in that position, but they're kind of keeping him in the more entertainment role than the title contention role, and they maybe felt that he didn't need the title. So now he's on SmackDown. I don't know. I think he's ready, and I think he should be brought up, but in a lot of cases, we've seen what happened to Shinsuke Nakamura and others. I don't want to see Matt Riddle reduced to that, to where he's just losing matches and getting rolled up and pinned by Elias on TV and shit. I don't want to see that for him. I really want to see him be a main eventer, because I think the dude is amazing, but I have my doubts, and I'm just nervous, that's all. But he's going to be on SmackDown now. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on, and we'll see what the future holds for Riddle. But pretty cool that Thatcher, is going to be a pretty big force to be reckoned with now on in NXT. And who knows when Pete Dunne comes back, if Pete Dunne will maybe feud with Thatcher. I would like to see Pete Dunne maybe go to the main roster, because I'm sad we never got a conclusion to the Broserweights. The only reason that team was even broken up at all was because of the pandemic and stuff. So we never got like the split and the match and all of that. So maybe they can bring Pete Dunne as well to SmackDown, and he can reform something with Riddle, and they can do some stuff. But when you think about what goes on in the tag team division, the Broserweights were fun, but if you give it time, the Broserweights are going to be having a basketball competition with the Viking Raiders, and we don't need that shit either. They also did some hyping for the Adam Cole and Velveteen Dream match on the show as well. He had some sort of a on-screen Skype interview with William Regal or something. Now, the match has already been filmed, and it's kind of a crazy story here. I read this off a couple of days ago off Fightful Select. The match was taped on Thursday, and I guess the talent, this doesn't make any sense to me, but the talent was told to carpool, and that cars were going to be surrounding the ring in the set behind Full Sail. But if they need cars for this, why do they want the talent to carpool? They should want everybody to drive individually so they can have a choice of however many cars they want. I don't understand the carpooling part. But anyway, apparently this is going to be, I don't know what In Your House is going to look like, but it looks like it might be partially in Full Sail, partially outside of it. I don't know. Don't even know what that means. But anyway, Cole and Dream has already been filmed. There have been some rumors because Adam Cole attended an AEW barbecue or something. And of course, he is with Britt Baker. And there's been rumors that he might be joining AEW because his contract might be up soon. I don't see that happening. I would love Adam Cole in AEW. As a matter of fact, I think Adam Cole could be bigger in AEW than he ever would be on Raw or SmackDown. But he's also been treated very well in NXT. He's got a long run with that title. I guess the word is out. I haven't read the spoilers. I don't know if he drops it to Velveteen or not. But if he does, he still had a very long run. And he could be part of these other call-ups that we've been hearing about in addition to Matt Riddle, or he can continue his run in NXT. But either way, I've heard that he's like a pet project of Shawn Michaels. I think the company is invested in him enough to where I think he'd almost be foolish to leave, because right now he doesn't have a creative reason to leave. He's been on top of NXT forever. He's at the top of the card. He has great matches. Fans like his work. It's not like he's frustrated with his spot in the company or his push. He's a fucking champion. So I am not buying into the rumors that he's going to AEW. If things were going differently for him, if his contract was almost up and he was floundering on Raw like the Revival was, then I'm like, hell yeah, he should go over there and join his woman. But I think right now, I think his bread is buttered in NXT. But who knows what the future holds? I would love to see Adam Cole in AEW. I just don't think he really needs to go there. I think some other talent would benefit probably even more than him. And plus, I think he'll continue to make pretty good money in WWE. Let's move on to AEW, but before I do that, let me scroll up here, bust out a couple of super supers, and then we'll move into the Dynamite results. Austin, I think you're first, brother. Thank you for the $5. I appreciate it. I'm not offended by the Hardy thing since it looks like he was set up. It's possibly revealed by the hacker who did it. Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in just a minute after AEW. We'll roll into Smackdown, and I'm going to give my thoughts on that. And whether or not I'm offended. I'm not offended by it, but I do kind of think it's a little bit in bad taste, and we'll discuss why here in a few minutes. But thanks again, Austin, for always chiming in. Zane, thanks again, man. 10 more bucks. I really appreciate that. Let's say Taker's final run would lead into the Survivor Series. Would he need one final title run before he officially retires and then lose the title at Survivor Series? I'd be all right with that. They gave Hogan the title. They gave Hogan the title when he had no business holding it. So Taker, why not? I mean, Rock came back to win it. I don't think that would be out of the question, especially if he dropped it at Survivor Series and passed it on to someone else. I'm into that idea. Still don't know what the future holds for The Undertaker. Still don't know if we're going to find anything out on the conclusion and the final 2 chapters of The Last Ride. The next chapter does not air until like June 14th or something. So for some reason, between chapter 3 and chapter 4, they've given us like a 2 or 3 week break. I don't know if that's maybe to let the other ones breathe a little bit, or if they're setting it up to maybe coincide with some sort of a big announcement. And some of us have speculated that maybe The Undertaker's retirement isn't in the form of a match. It's in the form of a 5-part documentary. So maybe at the end of number 5, we get some sort of revelation into his retirement or something like that. But if I had my choice, and the fans can be back in the arena by the time we get to Thanksgiving, Survivor Series would be such a good, peaceful, personal piece of closure for me to see him retire on the very show that he debuted on 30 years to the day. You can't write it any better. So for them not to do that, I think would be foolish. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We got about another few months to figure out what direction they're going to go in, but yeah, Zane, I'm into that idea. They could put the belt on him first, maybe in October, have him hold it for 4 weeks, drop it to maybe Roman. Roman kind of got the shit end of the stick. I know nobody likes Roman, but Taker said as much in the documentary. He felt horrible, for coming back, especially when Roman thought he had that last match in The Undertaker's final moment. I'd be open to that. I'd actually be cool with him having another match with Roman and losing the title. Why not? Michael Cuomo, good to see you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for the $5. Rib or not, I'm just amazed that the wrestling is being used freely with Vince in power. I thought it was sports entertainment. Yeah, he can't decide what the hell he wants. they have these silly words and phrases that they want banned, but if they decide a match needs one of those words, they unban it. We saw the same thing with Becky Two Belts. Remember, you can't say belt because the fans can't hear that word. Why not? But once Becky started saying Becky Two Belts, then all of a sudden it was okay to say belts again. So the moral of the story is just don't ban any words and stop being fucking stupid, Vince McMahon. But yeah, I agree. All of a sudden wrestling is okay now, and they say wrestling every other 5 seconds when talking about the Edge and Randy Orton match. So, oh, Ryan, I missed that. Green fired Stone in a backstage interview. Totally missed that part of NXT. Oh, good. I didn't like him anyway. Thank you for that. I'm an idiot. Thanks for filling me in. See, there's always a few little holes that need to be plugged, and that's what you guys are for. Yo, Steven Scott, man. What's up, dude? Appreciate the $20. Very generous. Super chat of you. Thanks for stopping in here. Hey, good mic work. I was watching Raw from 1997 during Brian Pillman's death. Ugh. That happened around Bad Blood in St. Louis. The next night, Raw was in the Kemper Arena. Owen dies in Kemper Arena, and Raw was in St. Louis. Sad man. Yes, I've always known that, and I've always thought that was weird because Bad Blood was in St. Louis, right? And they brought out all of the, before the match, they brought out all the like the St. Louis legends. They had like Harley Race and all that stuff in there. And then the next night, yeah, they were in Kemper, and it's all kind of tied in together, and it's all so weird. But yeah, I remember that well. Still, I've got mic drops and stuff on my channel up on this, but I've had a lot of thoughts about the Melanie thing throughout the years. Just looking back, I think at the time I thought nothing of it. Actually thought it was kind of nice to see, or not nice, but you know, seeing Brian's wife on there, and we all felt so horrible that he died. I don't think I was understanding how cringy and uncomfortable and fucked up it was that they brought her on there the very day after he died and interviewed her on TV in the middle of a Monday Night War. You know, I'm like, you can't bring somebody who lost her husband on TV 24 hours later to fucking help your ratings. It's just, it's just grimy. It just felt dirty to me, you know? And looking back, it was just, it was a horrible day. I thought the beginning was good. You know, the big tribute they did, it was the first time, I've said this before, it's the first time we ever saw the roster on the stage. Because the Raw set was not even that old by that point. They'd only had it that year. So it's the first time that everybody gathered like that together, and they did the 10 bell salute with the big, you know, graphic on the screen. We would go on to see that literally dozens of times more throughout the years, but it was really the first time. So yeah, that was a crazy time, man. I remember that night well, and the whole Pillman thing. I remember buying the, I bought 2 of the magazines, the Pillman tribute magazines. I bought the Pillman shirt, which is a really cool shirt with some stuff written on the back, and it got so worn out, I ended up either throwing it away or it got ruined or something, but I used to wear it to wrestling shows and always got compliments on the shirt. They're like, oh, awesome shirt, because everybody wears a wrestling shirt to wrestling shows, right? But, you know, everybody has the same ones. Everybody's got an Austin shirt and shit, so it's not like people are going to be like, hey, nice Austin 316 shirt, because you got 5,000 Austin 316 shirts in that arena. So I always would have people compliment the Pillman shirt, and I loved wearing it, and all the proceeds, you know, went to his family or whatever. But yeah, that was a hard death, man. That really sucked. And we're speculating that he could be a subject on season 3 of Dark Side of the Ring if Vice ends up confirming that. So we'll find out. Medical facility instead of hospital. Yeah, exactly, Devlin. Oh, that's so annoying. Anyway, let's roll in now to AEW. Now, like I said, AEW had a pretty decisive win there. Ratings were up a little bit. They had 827,000 to NXT's 731, so nearly a victory of about 100K for AEW, but I still thought NXT provided the better show. Now, AEW is also in the middle of building up Fyter Fest, but Fyter Fest is way up in the air. They don't even know. There's an asshole on a little motorbike drives by. They don't even know when Fyter Fest is going to be yet, because Fyter Fest was supposed to be apparently in London, which sucks because the fans there would be awesome. Could you imagine that crowd at a pay-per-view in London and AEW? Oh my God. That is a heartbreaker right there. I'm sure they'll go back there when we're able to, but that really sucks. So since that now cannot happen, they've got to not only postpone or change the location, they got to change the date, and they just kept saying later this summer, all throughout Dynamite. So they don't even really know when this is going to happen yet. Pardon me while I take a sip of water, huge water. So that's a shame about Fyter Fest, but I think the card is shaping up pretty good. They're starting to build to that now. The show opens with the Inner Circle. They're kind of standing outside this big truck, and they're trying to figure out what to do with all of their stadium Stampede Championship t-shirts that they had made. There's like a couple of boxes there, and then they reveal when they open the truck door that there's a whole truck full of these things. They got thousands of them, and that's pretty funny because it's like, you know, they make championship shirts for both Super Bowl teams, but only one wins. So usually they take the other ones and they send them over to, you know, third world countries and stuff, and they just get them out of here so they can't be sold. Sometimes they surface on eBay and stuff. So now Inner Circle finds himself in the same situation, and I thought that was very funny and very comical. We had Matt Hardy and the Elite cutting a promo backstage. Matt and the Young Bucks are about to go out to the ring to take on Private Party and Joey Janela. So the Bucks request that Matt Hardy, because he's Broken Matt or he's Damascus or whatever he is, they kind of request that he changes forms and he's someone else. So then he comes back as like Hardy Boys Matt Hardy, and they're like, no, maybe turn back the clock a little bit further. And then he comes back kind of as a buck of youth, because back in the days of the Hardy Boys being jobbers in WWE, like 99, 98, they dressed exactly like the Young Bucks. So Matt Hardy kind of channeled that old school Hardy Boy look, and now he joins the Bucks of Youth, and they go out to the ring to take on Private Party and Joey Janela. They win, of course. There were a lot more people in the crowd this time. AEW, it cracks me up. They keep staying one step ahead of the WWE in this pandemic stuff, because, you know, they had their right idea with the hard cam facing the stage, which WWE copied. They had the right idea putting wrestlers, sprinkling them around the outside of the ring just to create some noise. And even though it wasn't much, it was significantly different, and it was infinitely better having a little bit of noise, albeit small, in an empty arena setting like that, where WWE refused to do that, and there was a vastly different environment. It was just dead, stone cold silence, didn't work, became frustratingly annoying. So finally, WWE kind of bit the bullet and decided to do something similar, but they've now surrounded the ring in plexiglass, which I think might be just a step too much, I think, but, you know, they're just trying to be safe, so you can't really fault them for that. But now they are including people around the ringside area so you can hear them. But the plexiglass drowns out a little bit of that sound, so it's not quite as loud, but it definitely helps. No one can argue that this week on Raw, NXT, and SmackDown, having an audience was better. And in response to WWE kind of doing their thing, AEW, it looked like they had a whole pocket of people like in the bleachers. So now it looked like there was at least 100 or so people total combined surrounding Daly's place, and they were making a ton of noise, and it really helped, and I loved it. So once WWE kind of catches up to AEW, AEW then takes one step past them and says, okay, now we're going to do this. Now we're going to add more people, because they have the ability to do that. The Performance Center is much smaller than Daly's place. It's wide open. You can see, I love on Dynamite the way you can see the sunset kind of in the background like that. I just love outdoors and sunshine and shit, so that stuff always gets me. So I just like the environment better, and plus they got more room to kind of spread people around, and it just looks better. So I still think, even though WWE's done the right thing, copying the hard cam thing, putting fans in the arena or in the Performance Center to make a little bit of noise, I still don't think it's as good as what AEW is doing. They are doing it better. Jim Ross, during the match, I think the Bucks took a shot at the Butcher and the Blade, who were standing out there at ringside, who apparently are no longer with the Bunny anymore, so I don't know what that's about. And JR says something, he drops some line about, well, at least they're not behind plexiglass. So he took a little dig at WWE there, which I liked. I don't mind the little digs. I mind the obsessive digs. I mind, you know, when one company becomes absolutely obsessed with WWE to where it's all they think about. That I don't want. But little pokes here and there, I got no problem with. I got a chuckle out of that. That was pretty funny. After the match, after the mat and the Young Bucks won, the Butcher and the Blade jump in the ring. They attack the Young Bucks, and that's when another truck comes in the distance, much like Cody Rhodes did a couple of weeks ago, where he violently bumped over the guardrail and came out to attack Lance Archer. But it's not Cody in the truck. It's FTR, the former Revival. They're here. Thank God. This warmed my heart beyond belief. You guys have no idea how much it thrilled me to see those guys there, because you know what makes Greg happy? Happy wrestlers. And I know what it's like to be at a job that you fucking hate and then going to a job that you love. There is no better feeling in the world than that, and I can just relate to that. And I was so happy to see the Revival show up on the scene. They attack Butcher and the Blade. They have a stare down with the Young Bucks, and that's a match we need. So the tag team division just gets better and better in AEW, and in terms of FTR, they are pieces of talent that absolutely need to be there. You know, I've seen a lot of people criticize AEW for bringing in some people saying, oh, they're just taking WWE's rejects or whatever, people that WWE doesn't want. That's not what's happening here. That doesn't apply here. Now, if AEW just scoops up every single piece of talent that WWE releases, that's one thing. But this team has wanted out for the better part of a year and a half, maybe even closer to 2 years now. They've said, fuck this place. We want out. They were offered $750,000 each to stay, and they said, hell no. So they are not rejects. They are not cast-offs. They are not castaways. They are people that WWE wanted to keep. They left them. WWE didn't get rid of them. They left them. And WWE decided to cut their losses after the pandemic and realized that it's not financially responsible to keep people on payroll out of spite right now, which is what they do with everybody, and which is what they've done with Luke Harper and so many others in the past when they were in a better financial position to do that. But now with the pandemic, you know, and them having to lay off so many people, they were basically forced to say, okay, we can't be dicks right now. And they were able to let the Revival go, which got them to AEW even sooner. But rest assured, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have gotten there, and they would have gone to AEW. They just got there a little bit earlier. So I think there's some cases where you want a wrestling company to be careful and not sign everybody. I think TNA made that mistake years ago. But there are some people that are worth signing. You can't just say, oh, we don't want to take them because they used to be in WWE. Fuck that. If they're valuable, take them. Doesn't matter where they came from. So the Revival are a great tag team, and they're one of the very few links we have to what tag team wrestling used to be in the 80s. And when I think of all the tag teams across all promotions, and I think of a team that best reminds me of the Killer Bees or the Can-Ams or the Bulldogs or Tully and Arn, I think of the Revival. Very cool picture on social media as well of FTR and Tully and Arn backstage together. That was awesome. I would love to form a Four Horsemen gimmick. Have Tully and Arn join forces somehow. Maybe Cody goes heel, reforms his friendship with Shawn Spears. They team up with FTR, with Tully and Arn as the JJ figures. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? But anyway, FTR's in AEW now. I could not be happier, and I'm happy for them. They've just got to be thrilled to be somewhere that's not crazy, and I'm happy for them. Brian Cage won a squash match while Moxley sat in on commentary. Cage, of course, won the Casino Battle Royal at Double or Nothing, so he gets the match with Jon Moxley, I guess, at Fyter Fest whenever that actually takes place. Taz is backing up Brian Cage, which I like him as a mouthpiece, and he adds a lot. I mean, you got Jake there, Arn there, Tully there, now Taz. You got a lot of old-time legends here kind of backing up other guys, which is not the worst thing in the world. Taz cut one of his classic Taz promos on Moxley, kind of lending his catchphrase off to Brian Cage. You know, survive if you can, live if I let you. What the fuck is it? Win if you can. I forgot what it is. Whatever that catchphrase is, that's what he says. And he's probably a good guy to have backing up Cage, because Cage is just a very intimidating ass kicker, and I like Taz in this role. I'd like to see him cut more Taz promos. I never get tired of Taz promos. I didn't really like the Britt Baker promo, the wheelchair promo, where she was talking about the rules of being a role model. 2 L's in role. Kind of funny. Felt like things were a little weird with the girl flipping the cards, and Tony Schiavone lost his way a couple of times. Don't know. I like the work that Britt Baker does as a heel. I think she's really funny. Thrilled to hear that it is not a 9-month ordeal. I think it was initially reported that she might have torn an ACL or something like that when she took that spot with Nyla Rose landing on her a couple of weeks ago. Turns out she's only going to be out about 2 months. That is a huge relief. I would have hated to see her have catastrophic knee surgery or a knee injury that would keep her out for that amount of time. So she's just a little banged up, and apparently she'll be back. That's awesome news. The new AEW Women's Champion was also in action. Big win for her over Nyla Rose. That match surprised me. I was really happy for Hikaru Shida, even though I didn't think she was going to win. I thought it was going to take a while. I thought she would get there, but I thought Nyla would run for a little while longer. But she won the title, and she had her first match here back on TV. It defeated a girl named Christy James, who had a pretty good outing. She looked good. Very good-looking girl, very athletic girl. She was doing a lot, maybe a little too much dancing and smiling and not enough focusing and stuff. But overall, you could see that she's got moves. She's got some potential there, and she looked pretty good. So who was the girl a couple of weeks ago? I forget her name now. Kylie or Kaylee something. She was like 18 years old. I was impressed with her, the way she was moving around in there. So we'll see if we see any more of Christy James. She kind of reminds me of like a Santana Garrett in NXT or something like that. So we'll see. But I thought, just a little bit we saw of her, she got some talent. Next up, we had the Cody Rhodes promo, kind of a celebration promo. He won, of course, the TNT Championship against Lance Archer in the finals at Double or Nothing. And I talked about his win at Double or Nothing during my review after the show. And I thought that even though I love Cody as a babyface, I like Cody. I'm a Cody defender. He's gonna fall in the same category to me as like a John Cena or a Roman Reigns or even a Triple H to a degree, to where I think I'm going to have their back, because I think they're easy targets now for the fans, and I see people giving a lot of shit to Cody, and I think it's stupid. I like Cody, but I did acknowledge that maybe after he won the title that sometimes Cody seems to be a little too emotional. Like when they did the All In show, when he won the NWA title from Magnus or whatever, that was a big deal. To me, that warranted tears. For him to really sit there and hold a title that his dad held, in the main event of a show outside of WWE. That was a great moment for him, and I was happy to see that. Same thing with the big bloodbath he had with his brother Dustin and the emotion after that. But not every situation and victory needs to be like that. And although he should be very happy that he is the inaugural champion of a brand new belt, he was acting as if he won the title at the main event of WrestleMania. I thought that was a little bit much. And then he comes out on Dynamite and he starts cutting his promo, and he's being very sincere in everything, but he then kind of compares himself to Tom Brady, because Tom Brady, I remember, he was like the 200th pick or the 199th pick out of Michigan in the draft, and look at what he went on to do. But Tom Brady, Tom Brady has titles. You don't. You have a TNT championship that's brand new. It's not really the same thing. But when he said that, it made me almost think, and think about what I said a minute ago about a potential maybe 4 horsemen if Cody goes heel. What if he's being overly serious on purpose in order to get under the fan's skin? What if it's a subtle heel turn? Because there's some of those type of heels that are so full of themselves, or that they really believe that they are like the second coming of fucking Christ, So Cody comparing himself to Tom Brady, crying and being so emotional over the title win. Maybe they'll do an angle where he's taking himself too seriously. Either that or he might really be doing it. Either way, I'm a Cody fan. I still like what he does. And I really like the announcement that he made that he's going to defend the TNT Championship every week on TV, which is great. It kind of reminds me of John Cena's U.S. title challenge, which I never got tired of. I never got bored of it. I thought that did a lot for the title, really helped bring it up. And here Cody is kind of doing the same thing in a way, although this is not going to be an open challenge. I don't think, but it's gonna, it's kind of like a TV title as well, because he's going to be defending it on TV on the very network that it's named after. So I'm into that idea. We'll see how long it lasts. We'll see if his will be as entertaining as Cena's was. And we'll see if any of these little things we're picking up on about Cody maybe being a little bit too serious or maybe being a little bit too emotional, here or there, maybe there's a subtlety to that we're not seeing, and there's a reason why he's doing it. We'll see. I don't know. But either way, I'm perfectly fine. I told that too. I said that on Saturday night that I didn't mind, Cody winning the title. I thought he's had a lot of losses lately, and he should win. He should be the guy that AEW wants in the record books as their first champion. Not Lance Archer. Lance Archer, if this was a title that was already established and they had a tournament for it, maybe I'd be a little bit more on the side of Lance Archer to win it. But this is something that if AEW survives 50 years and you look back in the record books, I think they would prefer to see one of their executives as the first title holder rather than a guy that might have only been there for 2 years. So that's why I thought Cody was a shoo-in to win that title all along. And if he's going to be defending it every week, it's not like he can hold the title for a year. You know what I mean? So this sounds like a title that should probably change hands pretty often, if I had to guess. Next up on Dynamite, we had Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc actually defeating SCU, which is weird. I'm not a huge Jimmy Havoc fan. They had a lot of help from Penelope Ford. This was a match to determine who would face the tag team champions next week on Dynamite. So you're going to get Sabian and Havoc taking on Page and Omega. I don't think there's any chance in hell that Sabian and Havoc will win next week. So that's why I'm okay with them winning, even though they beat SCU and that was a surprise. We've seen a lot of SCU. and Page and Omega matches. I was there for the title change on the boat on the Jericho cruise in January when they faced. So I guess for match freshness reasons that Sabian and Havoc were the right way to go there. The Best Friends also have an upcoming title shot. They're going to face the champs at Fyter Fest, and that likely will be Page and Omega. And we'll see whenever that Page and Omega split happens. They've been dragging this shit out for at least 8 months now. Next up, we had the Battle Royal. So they had a Battle Royal on Dynamite. The winner is going to face Cody Rhodes. So I guess that's going to be next week. So since Cody is going to be defending the title every week, they need to determine challengers for him. All sorts of people were in this match. They had Orange Cassidy making his entrance, and he's attacked by Proud and Powerful because earlier in the night he walked right past an Inner Circle promo, and they got pissed. So they were kind of out to get him. You also, prior to the Battle Royal, saw MJF and Wardlow cutting a promo, and they gave you that little tease that they're going to eventually split. They're going to do the Diesel Shawn thing with these two because MJF and Wardlow are both in the Battle Royal, and MJF says it's good. We're going to team up. We're going to get rid of everybody, and when it comes down to the two of us, big man knows what to do. And Wardlow's like, oh, unless I throw you out. And then MJF like gets in his face and starts screaming at him. And the very first thing I thought of was Alex Riley and The Miz when Riley snapped and just beat the ever-loving piss out of The Miz all over Monday Night Raw. And I'm like, that's what they're going to do. I kind of thought they would wait on that. Eventually, because Wardlow to me was impressive in his first outing in that match with Cody. I'm surprised that he's not a guy that's not fallen into WWE's contractual ways. That just Vince, like when you think about the push that Roman Reigns gets, I would think that when Vince looks at Wardlow, he ejaculates. But Wardlow eventually isn't going to be able to be with MJF forever. So you're going to go in that direction. I just kind of thought it was interesting that they started it this quick. And so it's going to lead to that. 1 week on TV, Wardlow's going to have enough. It would be cool if maybe MJF went and found another gigantic bodyguard to back him up the way Shawn went and got Sid after Diesel dumped him. Maybe something like that. But I'd like to see a combination of the two, like a throwback to Diesel and Shawn and a throwback to Alex Riley and The Miz. And if Wardlow attacks MJF the same way and with the same intensity that Riley attacked The Miz, MJF could die. And in the match, he actually accidentally punches Wardlow. So you knew the miscommunication was going to happen somewhere in the Battle Royal. Both guys wind up getting eliminated, leaving Jungle Boy in the ring by himself. But Orange Cassidy, when he was attacked on the outside of the ring, he never even got in the Battle Royal. So he's able to slide in there at the very end. Comes down to Jungle Boy and Cassidy is the final two. Jungle Boy, I think, hooks him in like a Hurricanrana or leg scissors and pulls him over the top rope, wins the match, and Jungle will face Cody next week for the title. Babyface match, probably a really good, hard fight for Jungle Boy. He will fall short. I don't think Cody's going to be dropping it in his first title defense. And we'll see. Should be a fun match anyway. I think the match will be good. And I think Jungle Boy will eat a crossroads and get pinned, and Cody will be 1-0 in his title defenses. The main event was crazy. All sorts of stuff happening here. Inner Circle, like I said earlier on in the show, we're trying to unload all those championship t-shirts that don't work anymore and or aren't valid anymore. And they're going to have a pep rally tonight in the ring with all sorts of shit in the ring. They had cheerleaders out there. Vicky Guerrero is dressed as a cheerleader. She's announcing everybody to the ring. And I don't know about you guys, but I prefer a non-Vicky cheerleading world. Like if I had my say, I would prefer no Vicky Guerrero cheerleaders on the earth, but that's just me. Let me know if you agree. They start giving away all the t-shirts to the audience that's in the ring, throwing them out. Sammy Guevara has got presents for people. He gives out some headphones. He's got participation trophies. So he said, hey, we might not have won, but we participated. So I guess all the mothers of the Inner Circle members are Karens because all of them are getting participation trophies just so their feelings weren't be hurt and they wouldn't be exclusionary. Jericho's got some presents as well. He gives Sammy Guevara a scooter instead of a crutch because Sammy's kind of limping around out there. Jake Hager winds up reading a poem and going into a schizophrenic episode. That was pretty funny. Jericho, after all these festivities, after the cheese platter is revealed and all the crazy stuff they do, Jericho out of the blue all of a sudden says that he wants one thing. He wants Mike Tyson's head on a platter. And I knew Mike Tyson was around because he presented the belt to Cody at Double or Nothing, and he took his shirt off, and he was having fun, and he's still there. All this stuff happened in the same building, so I'm not surprised that they still incorporated Tyson into another angle here. But Jericho says he wants revenge on Tyson for something that happened on a Monday night back in 2010. I'd almost forgotten about this. This was like before I was even doing YouTube when this took place. It was so long ago. I'm like, oh yeah, I know Mike has been on Raw throughout the years a few times. He's gone into the Hall of Fame and, he's been in and out, but I barely remember anything that he's done. And then I looked it up. I'm like, oh yeah, he had that thing with DX where he punched and knocked out Chris Jericho. So it's kind of interesting that Chris Jericho wants revenge on Mike Tyson in AEW for something that happened in WWE. How cool would it be? Remember years ago when TNA and WWE made the deal for Ric Flair to go into the Hall of Fame with the Horsemen, and they sent Christian back to TNA to be Christian Cage and make an appearance or whatever? I think it would be so cool if WWE would allow AEW to use that footage or something, like maybe for a price. And maybe AEW can scratch WWE's back. I don't think they have that type of relationship, but it would kind of be cool if they are trying to set up for a match like this or some sort of a confrontation that they can refer back to that, because otherwise they can't say exactly what happened. I mean, I guess suppose they could, but they're going to be vague about it. Something that happened in another promotion on a Monday night. We know what they're talking about. So I found that interesting, but aside from publicity, is this something that AEW really wants to do? A couple of 50-year-old guys? I don't know if they're actually going to do a match here, if that's something that we want to see. Mike Tyson wound up showing up after Jericho called him out. Got a crazy-looking entourage with him as well. Jericho is demanding an apology for being punched. Tyson rips his shirt off, struggles to rip his shirt off. He barely got it off. Starts, holding up his arms in Jericho's face and making crazy facial expressions. I think Jericho pushes him, very 1998 style on Raw with Austin and Tyson. Big pull apart, big fight happens. Everybody's clawing and scratching at each other. The whole thing was a complete ripoff of Monday Night Raw. I was just waiting for Tony Khan to come out there and say, you ruined it, damn it, and get all up in Jericho's face. So correct me if I'm wrong. Does it look like that they're actually setting up for a Mike Tyson wrestling match? That's something that WWE was never able to accomplish. I remember in 98 when that happened with Tyson and Austin, I was almost confused. I'm like, are they going to do Tyson and Austin at WrestleMania? Is Tyson going to get in the ring? It's kind of like a few years later, like when The Rock came back to be the referee in the Cena-Miz match. It looked like the build was Rock and Cena, but the Miz was stuck in there. So I felt like in 98, it was the same thing. Like Shawn was just an afterthought. The centerpiece here was Mike Tyson and Austin, but Tyson never got in the ring. So if they actually train Mike to take some bumps and have a match with Jericho, how good can this thing be? I mean, Jericho's a pro. I trust him. I trust him to teach. But Tyson's 53 and Jericho's 81. So I don't know how this would look if it actually leads to a pay-per-view fight, some big pay-per-view attraction, because that's going to get some publicity. It's going to be on ESPN and shit and all that stuff, which is probably what AEW is going after here. But be careful. I don't really like the way, and I know Devlin, you hated it. I didn't really like the way the main event came off, or the main event segment came off, because it was just a complete and total rehash of what we saw in 1998, and that was 22 years ago when Mike Tyson was a young 31 years old or whatever he was. So I don't know. Maybe it can. I mean, Tyson can be entertaining and stuff from time to time, but what kind of promos is he going to cut? And if this actually is going to be a match, maybe it's going to be like a Karl Malone, Dennis Rodman type of thing in WCW where it's a tag. Maybe Tyson gets an ally to take on Jericho and someone else. I don't know. We'll see. Not my favorite angle in AEW, which is why I think I gave the nod this week to NXT in terms of the show that I liked better. But the pep rally had its moments. It's just that ending was kind of like, oh God, what are they doing here? So anyway, we'll see. What'd y'all think about it? I'm going to go up here before we get into Smackdown and knock out some more super chats, and then we'll finish up with Smackdown and whatever else you want to talk about. We are about an hour and 20 minutes in on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, excuse me. And we are really low on the likes. We got an awesome audience of 540 people in here, but no likes at all, less than 100. So if you guys can smash that thumbs up for me, I would appreciate it. And if it's your first time here, subscribe. I am really close to 30,000, might even get there by Monday night. So finally, we've reached that plateau. I still think we should have 130,000, but still pretty cool nonetheless. So thanks, y'all. Let me knock out Supers, and then we'll talk about SmackDown. Icy Hardaway, thank you very much for the $10. I appreciate it. I don't want to see Undertaker retire at Survivor Series because I paid a ton of money to see him at Survivor Series 2015. We promoted it as his last Survivor Series as a selling... Oh, WWE promoted it as a last Survivor Series as a selling point for the pay-per-view. They did, didn't they? Damn, way back in 2015. Yeah, I do remember that now. That is weird. Yeah, but... Well, I understand you saw him at Survivor Series 2015. I still think the date is so perfect, though. Just, 30th anniversary. It was up to me. He would have retired at WrestleMania 33, but he didn't. So I'm just looking at like the next best possible place for that to happen. And I think the 30th anniversary to the day is a really good spot for it to happen. But I'm not even that optimistic about it. So for the moment, Icy, you're probably all right. I'm got a gut feeling they might reveal something on Chapter 5 of that last ride. So we might not even have Survivor Series might not even be in the conversation, but I kind of want it to be. But yeah, I can understand putting your money down, thinking you saw something, and then WWE yanks the carpet out from under you. They tend to do that a lot. Bane, what's up, man? Thanks for the $10. Which AEW star would be better suited in AEW or in WWE? Excuse me. I'd have to think on that. It's not going to be as many as WWE because they have a smaller roster. I think in AEW the stars have room to like grow there and do things because they're not so lost in the shuffle, where WWE has way too many people that they just go weeks and weeks and weeks without using. So I'd probably say nobody right now. I'm trying to think of everybody who's there that I think would have a better position in WWE. I can't really think of anybody. I think everybody's used pretty well. Like I think of somebody like Sammy Guevara, who I think's entertaining as hell, but if you put him in NXT, he's now with a lot of other fish his size and that can do a lot of his stuff, and he's entertaining as hell, but I don't know if he'd have room to shine in NXT because there's just not enough TV time to go around. Where in AEW, you can really see him grow. And we've seen a lot of people in AEW that have already been in WWE. Jake Hager, can't really argue. I mean, he was world champion in WWE. He hasn't been that in AEW yet, but still, I think he has more of a presence on the show. Everybody does. So I don't know. I'd have to kind of give that some thought. None of the women, I don't think, would be better off there, per se. I think MJF is better where he is. Probably Matt Cage, too, or Brian Cage, too. Paige, Omega, they're all better off where they are. Right now, I'm going to say no one, but I might have to give that some thought, Bane, and come up with some better ideas. Nick Musser, good to see you, man. Appreciate the $2. Thank you for that. Is Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson wrestling in 2020? I don't think so. They teased that in that contract signing on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago. I thought they were going to get at least come to blows in the TNT title match, but they didn't. I thought there was going to be a lot going on. I thought they were both going to interfere. I thought Tyson was going to interfere. I thought Brandy was going to interfere. But it didn't get to that point. And I liked the tease of it, but that's all I need is the tease, because the idea of Jake Roberts taking a bump kind of scares me. As a matter of fact, I saw him on the cruise a couple of times, and they had an AEW ring there set up on the stage where, in the theater where all the podcasts would happen and the live shows and shit like that. And the ring ropes weren't like regular ropes. They were barely on. Like the turnbuckles weren't tightened or anything. So they were really like saggy and wobbly and stuff. And the first couple of nights, the ship was rocking pretty hard. And Jake, I remember like he was kind of swaying in there a little bit, kind of hanging, because they had those tall like bar stools that they were sitting on. And he seemed like a little bit off balance. And when he was getting in and out of the ring, going down the steps, I remember watching him be like, please don't fall, please don't fall. So Jake looks like somebody that could get severely injured just by taking a fall. So I don't know if he can be taking bumps or not. So let's not have a Jake and Arn match. If it was 1988, I'd be in the front row for that, but maybe not in 2020. Joey G, thank you, man. Appreciate the cool dancing bird thing, and thanks for the $2. Appreciate it. DM23, thank you as well for the $2. You think there will be more cage fighting in WWE? Maybe. I think I mean, I don't know what you mean cage fighting, like what we saw on NXT. I liked that match. Again, save it for badasses. Don't turn it into a match concept. I don't want to see a fight pit pay-per-view or anything like that where the thing turns into the Elimination Chamber or turns into the Hell in the Cell. Use it for maybe people like Matt Riddle, Killer Cross, crazy people, badasses, right? Maybe even throw Brock in one of those things one day. Who knows? But yeah, I'd be down to see another one. I just don't want to see a lot of them, if that makes sense. And thanks for another one right under that as well for $5 more. If Taker retires at Survivor Series and then goes in the Hall of Fame next year, to me, that'd be perfect for him. To me, that would be perfect for me as well, because I plan on being at WrestleMania next year, provided everything works out, of course. And if Taker goes into the Hall of Fame, I'll get to see that. So not only, well, what a bounce back. I was so freaked out that The Undertaker tarnished his entire legacy by ruining his retirement at WrestleMania 33. If he's able now to retire at the perfect time, perfect date, perfect location, 30th anniversary of his debut, and go into the Hall of Fame at the WrestleMania that I'm attending, I can die a happy man. So I wouldn't have expected that a couple of years ago, that it would actually benefit me for him to do all that, but it might. So I like your idea, DM, because that means I'll get to see it. So we'll see. Yeah, and I agree. Omega felt much bigger in Japan than he does here, but I don't think he'd be bigger in WWE. I still think he's better in AEW. He might be better in New Japan, but I don't think he'd be better off in WWE compared to AEW. But yeah, that's probably the closest one, because Omega definitely feels like he's dropped a bit in importance from going over there, where I thought he was going to be the centerpiece. I thought he was going to be the crown jewel of that organization, and he still will be. Omega will win the world title. 1,000,000,000% he will win the title. I would bet my middle nut on it, but they're establishing other guys first, I guess. Anyway, let's talk about Smackdown. We had it open up with the car spot. Now, this is the big hit and run thing that we opened with. I was at work last night, so I was asking you guys for updates, and a lot of you were tweeting me saying Jeff Hardy ran over Elias. I'm like, what the hell? Did they do like a Survivor Series 1999 type of deal where somebody tried to take Elias out? What's this about? And why did Jeff Hardy do it? And both of these guys are in the Intercontinental title tournament. They both have matches to go to the finals. This is all weird. So when I got home and was able to take a look at it, I kind of laughed a little bit. Now, one thing I will say, I think I'm in the minority on this, because from what I could tell on social media from most people, is that they thought it was well done. They thought it was, regardless of whether or not you kind of agree with the angle and the sensitive nature of it, it was produced well and looked real. And then I watched it and I'm like, no, it doesn't. It looks fucking totally unrealistic as fuck to me. So I didn't think it looked real at all. I actually thought it was kind of cheesy. CM Punk had fun with it on Twitter, LOLing at the cops, Jeff Hardy, is there a Jeff Hardy here? And you got Renee Young doing the report, and you got Elias laying down, and there's a car all sideways on the telephone pole. To me, it didn't look real, but a lot of people said and gave praise to the segment that it was well done. And I guess it turns out that the rental car was empty, hits Elias, and crashes. Nobody's in the rental car. There's empty and open beer bottles in the car, or alcohol bottles in the car. And when they retrieve the paperwork and the registration from the glove box, it's revealed to be Jeff Hardy's rental car. But Jeff Hardy's nowhere to be found. And Jeff Hardy's found several yards away, like in the bushes, and the cops get him, and he's out of it. He doesn't know where he is. He's like, oh, my head hurts or whatever. And he's kind of confused, and they cuff him, and they arrest him, and they whisk him away. So right away, it's pretty clear that Jeff Hardy has been framed here by somebody. And it looks like, and as we'll talk about here in a minute, it looks like they kind of paid this off way earlier than I thought they would in the main event. I thought this would be something like a little bit longer of a whodunit type of thing, like with Austin, or, with any other sort of hit and run type of angle like this. But it looks like it was done just to set up Jeff Hardy and Sheamus, which is fine. But how many times do they have to keep going back to this well? Like, we've seen this from Jeff years ago with CM Punk. They did the straight edge versus, the guy with the demons. I even pitched the idea on Twitter last night. How cool would it be if this was CM Punk's return angle? What if CM Punk set Jeff Hardy up? Doesn't appear that's going to be the case. But you talk about long-term booking, talking about 11 years of long-term booking there, having CM Punk be the one behind this. But I don't think it's going to be him, because he was making fun of the segment and how silly it looked on social media. But in terms of them using Jeff's problems as an angle. I'm like two-sided on it. Number one, let me just make this perfectly clear. I am not offended. It's hard to offend me, even when shit is offensive most of the time. I try not to get overly offended about anything. I will tell you this, though. I'm kind of uncomfortable with it because, number one, it's not like Jeff's still battling these demons. And this, to me, has shades of Hawk, Scott Hall, who were both doing angles at particular times in their career while they were still in the middle of battling all these things. It's not like they were completely clean for 10 years and they're now, using it as an angle or anything like that. It's still real. I don't remember. I mean, Jeff Hardy just came off of like 2 DUIs in the last couple of years. One of them was like less than a year ago. This is all still new. He still has these issues. He's still not out from underneath some of these bad decisions. So for them to go back to this again, I'm like, the story's not being done being told yet. And I don't know why they continue to insist on doing angles like this when sometimes it's okay, but it's not always needed. I'm sure Jeff has given his blessing on this. I don't think he's forced into anything here because I also know that his contract's going to be coming up soon as well, and they want to make sure he's re-signed and he doesn't join his brother in AEW. So I certainly doubt that they would go out of their way to hype video packages for the way Jeff Hardy has changed his ways and how he wants to have another run and really focus on his troubles if he wasn't into it, because all that's going to do is piss him off and he's not going to stay and he's going to leave when his contract is up. So I'm sure Jeff is fine with all this personally, and in which case, if he's fine with it, I'm fine with it. It's just, I just think it's kind of like in bad taste. And plus now you're adding, not only are you focusing on his alcoholism and his drug problems that he's had, that he's still not really completely done with. Now you're adding like drunk driving and hit and run shit in this too. I know somebody. I have friends who lost their 8-year-old son to a drunk driver. He was riding his bike and a drunk driver ran him over and killed him. They're not wrestling fans, but what if they were and they were watching Smackdown last night? I don't think they would turn off the TV and boycott WWE and go on Twitter and say, I'm never fucking listening to that company again. It would just be something hard and uncomfortable to watch and would probably drag up a lot of unwanted pain and sadness that they've already been battling and dealing with and mourning for years. So I know that's just a small portion of people, and there's always going to be angles like that are going to have a personal effect on people. But this one is just so in your face because not only does it touch on drug and alcohol addiction, but it touches on drunk driving and things like that. And between those two problems, I can guarantee you, every single one of you in this chat knows somebody affected by it or has died of it or something. So, not saying it's wrong. TV shows do angles like this as well, and we're not criticizing them. So if you look at it in the context of entertainment, it's not something that I'm offended by. It's just something that I don't personally need to see. And especially now, after what we saw happen in the main event, it looks like Sheamus was the culprit here. Unless they do an angle where Sheamus is like, no, I swear to God, it wasn't me, and he still stays a heel, and he just maintains his innocence. Kind of like how Samoa Joe had nothing to do with Roman Reigns being run over, even though he was a heel, and it turns out to be somebody else. But they kind of like outed themselves in the main event when Jeff Hardy showed back up and attacked Sheamus. I thought they could drag this out. They could have the hacker reveal who was really behind it. So maybe Sheamus is a red herring, and there's some other bigger mastermind at play here. Who knows? But it felt like the way Smackdown went that we found out at the end of the show who did it, because Sheamus had a lot to gain by knocking out both of these guys so he can insert himself back in to the tournament. So anyway, that's what happened after the segment. You cut backstage, you see Adam Pearce, who just looked huge. He was standing on a platform. I'm like, is he 7 feet tall or something? And he's standing there with like 10 guys, one of those guys being the newly re-signed Drew Gulak. And Corbin and Sheamus are like, yeah, fuck Jeff Hardy, he's an alcoholic piece of crap. And they're all wondering what should happen. And AJ is like, well, I should be in the finals. It's a bye. I'm supposed to face Elias. And, so I guess I'm just in the finals. Daniel Bryan is like, I don't want to win it that way. I'm supposed to fight Jeff Hardy. So I'd rather have an opponent and get in the finals the right way, which is funny because AJ Styles keeps the bye. But they made a battle royal to determine who would face Daniel Bryan and take Jeff Hardy's place. And the winner of that would then advance to the finals to face AJ Styles. So they go to the battle royal. Sheamus winds up winning the Battle Royal. Like I said, Drew Gulak was in it. Jey Uso was also in it. Jimmy, I think, is out with an injury, so it's kind of cool to see them make use of Jey. Cesaro, I think, got eliminated by Shorty G, and then he came back and eliminated Shorty G illegally. That actually set up a match later on that Shorty G won in an upset by pinning Cesaro. So that's kind of weird. All of a sudden, WWE's giving Shorty G victories. Interesting. But in the end, we saw Sheamus win the Battle Royal, and that would put him in a match in the main event later on with Daniel Bryan. We had Sonya Deville and Lacey Evans fighting to a double count out here. I didn't mind this for one reason and one reason only. One of the biggest complaints and bigger complaints I've had lately about the women's division, especially on Raw, is that aside from the world title, there's very little storylines underneath that. You don't see too many issues between the women. Sometimes you'll see small ones or short ones, but nothing long term. And the closest we've really gotten to that is Sonya and Mandy and everything going on there, but they have men involved in that too with Otis and Dolph Ziggler. So in terms of just a non-title feud in the women's division, we don't get too many of those. And Sonya is a badass. Lacey's kind of a badass. This actually might be a good little pairing here, and they might wind up having a good program together. So I didn't really mind the double count out here. I hope it goes further because I think they're an interesting kind of combo. You know, Lacey's the tough one, you know, I'll punch you in the mouth, but Sonya, you know, Sonya's got the MMA experience, so I think they've got clashing styles that might make for an interesting feud. Just trying to be optimistic there. Next up, we had a Moment of Bliss segment with the New Day. This was kind of being billed as a championship summit because this is the men's and women's tag team champions all in the ring together. Shout out to the New Day. Very cool, very touching and heartwarming to see Kofi and Big E wearing shad armbands. They were all interrupted by Sasha and Bayley, and shout out to Sasha, who was wearing a Hana armband. Very cool to hear that. You had Mauro Ranallo tributing Hana Kimura on NXT, and now you've got New Day and Sasha paying tribute to Shad Gaspard and Hana Kimura. Very cool. Loved seeing that. A funny spot in all the jaw-jacking here because you've got the women's champion, you've got the men's tag champs, and you've got the women's tag champs. The only one without a belt is Sasha Banks, and I think Alexa asks Sasha where her title is. Where's your LeBaron, Freddie? I only see one LeBaron. Where's your LeBaron? Anybody ever see Freddie got fingered? Funny. Anyway, Sasha's there without a title, and of course, like Bayley has been doing lately, she kind of offers up her friend, she kind of offers up her bestie and volunteers her to take on Alexa Bliss in a match, and Sasha kind of gives that surprise look again. So again, they're just teasing the shit out of us with this eventual implosion between Sasha and Bayley. So next up, we had Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss. The most entertaining part of this match was Nikki Cross and Bayley on commentary. They both sat in, and they took over the show. Michael Cole couldn't even keep it together. Nikki's standing on the table and Bayley's yelling at her. Absolutely hilarious stuff there. I loved that to death. Sasha wound up winning after all sorts of interference. Bayley is on the apron interfering. Nikki's up there as well. Sasha's actually able to pin Alexa Bliss in the midst of all that confusion, and that's that. Now, I know that I've heard of, and I don't remember the story, maybe you guys can fill me in. Do Sasha and Alexa have heat? Don't they have some like internal heat? I think they might. So it's always interesting when they lock up. But Sasha Banks got the win there, and that's that really. Next up was probably my favorite segment of the night. Oh my God. So Mandy and Otis, who currently are madly in love right now, they did a spoof on the pool scene of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is one of the very first kind of like raunchy movies I was ever able to watch. Maybe that and Porky's, you know, as a kid growing up. I'm like, ooh, boobies or whatever. And Phoebe Cates back in the day was a snack, let me tell you. But they redid the whole deal where she comes out of the pool and opens up her bathing suit or whatever. They did that with Otis. Mandy's laying there they're out of the pool, and she's laying there in the chair, and she kind of drifts away to sleep and starts fantasizing about Otis swimming in the pool. And then he slowly gets out of the pool with the perfect music playing that almost matches the movie. Gets out of the pool and he rips his shirt open, and she's like, wow, and she like squirts her water or mustard or whatever she does. Hilarious stuff. He eventually dives in the pool for a cannonball, splashes her, wakes her up, and she's like, oh, I was in the middle of such a great fantasy. And then she climbs in the pool with him, and they start making out. That was great stuff. I could see more of that. I don't know why I found that so entertaining and not so puke-inducing, but I did. And that was entertaining. Entertaining stuff. They have really hit home runs with Mandy and Otis ever since this started. When it first started, I thought it was going to be dumb. I didn't really understand Otis, but it turned out to be one of the more well-written angles that they did. and it's got a lot of layers. And now we had more of an entertaining side here between the two of them, and hopefully they won't make any little Mandy and Otis babies. Let's hope. After that was when Kurt Angle was shown backstage with that goofy-ass look on his face, and he announces that Matt Riddle is on his way to SmackDown officially, so the bro is on the way. Now, according to Fightful Select, there's going to be a lot more call-ups other than Riddle, and we can expect to see more. Don't know if that's good or bad. The way I look at it, you never need, I always advocate for people not to be called up because it always ruins them. But, you know, they are all there. They are all in the Performance Center. All three shows are taking place under the same roof. So you have the talent there, and they've already kind of made up that bullshit brand-to-brand invitational rule where you can jump 4 times a year or whatever. So now if they're trying to incorporate a few more people, I guess I can understand seeing it for right now. But, you know, again, I don't think more call-ups is necessarily the answer to fixing ratings at all, because all it's going to do is force you to have more people not being used backstage. One of the names that has been rumored that should be visible on the main roster soon is Dominik Dijakovic, and that sounds about right. I don't see him doing anything else in NXT. He never, to me, seemed like somebody that was going to overcome a Keith Lee or even challenge for the world title, so it's probably a good move for him to make now as well. So we'll see him on Raw or SmackDown, I'm sure, in the near future, and probably a few other people as well. And finally, in the main event, it was Daniel Bryan taking on Sheamus. Luckily, Daniel Bryan won. Jeff Hardy showed up in this. Now, I kind of thought he was drugged or he was a little bit out of it, because when the cops were carrying him away in the opening segment, he's like, my head. So I thought maybe somebody drugged him or got him drunk, and so he couldn't really function. He kind of still looked a little wobbly when he ran out there, but he caused a distraction for Sheamus, allowing Daniel Bryan to hit him with the running knees and pin him and win the match. So Daniel Bryan now advances to face AJ Styles for the title. That's going to be a great match. Apparently it was already taped on the 26th. Don't know who won, but apparently it was a really, really good match. And how can it not be with Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles? So we have crowned a new Intercontinental Champion, and I'm glad that's the final we got. I really am. Now, in terms of Sheamus, what this told us with Jeff Hardy interfering here and attacking Sheamus, it's like, oh, well, Sheamus was the one that framed him because he was already eliminated from the tournament and he wants to get back in it, and he has a lot to gain by causing some sort of a hit and run type of deal with these two guys. And with Jeff Hardy attacking him to close the show, it looks like that's where they're going. Now, let me ask you this. Like I said earlier, is that a red herring or is it actually Sheamus? I think it would be cool if Sheamus, kind of like Samoa Joe, because Samoa Joe, even though he was a heel, he had integrity. And he was like, no, I did not harm Roman Reigns. I would never try to kill the man. I might not like him, but I don't want him dead, kind of thing. If Sheamus goes in that direction, he kind of maintains his innocence. And Hardy's like, I don't believe you, you lying dirty heel, sack of shit. You're lying. But Sheamus is really telling the truth. And then maybe at some point the hacker reveals that it was somebody else. Now, I don't know who that somebody else could be. They can't make it like Matt Hardy or anything because he's in AEW. So there might be somebody really pulling the strings here, because if not, they set up that whole angle that was kind of one of the more serious type of angles they've done in a while, with that whole hit and run to open the show, only to pay it off at the end and not drag it out for a bigger payoff. Surprised me. So I'm not sure if it's really Sheamus and it's the end of it and they're not going to really bring that up again, or if there's somebody else pulling the strings here and there's a bigger reveal down the line. What do you guys think about that? And I'll probably run through the, proposed Backlash card in just a second. Let me knock out a couple of more super chats. Really awesome audience in here. Pretty cool to see. 600 folks plus in here. Smash that thumbs up for me if you don't mind. I would appreciate it. I'm going to scroll back up here and knock out some more chats that are super. And that would be, let me see, did I get that one? Yep, I got that one from DM. How Wheezy is next. Good to see him, a moderator man. Appreciate the red spongy index finger and the $2. You're awesome, dude. Dante Zim 1. Thank you, dude. Good to see you. Appreciate the $10 and always good to see you in here. Hey, GoodMicWork. My home state has declared statewide shutdown due to the protesting Justice for Floyd, and it's freaking scary out here. Thank you for entertaining us during this difficult time. Man, where is your state? Right up the road from me in Mira Mesa, I know there are people protesting right now, and a lot of states are dealing with this. It's kind of spreading like wildfire, and I know that's all we've kind of been seeing on social media lately. I know that's scary. Stay safe. Hopefully you're not in too dangerous of an area. And the protests that are going on here have all been described as peaceful. There's no damage and violence and fires and anything like that going on here. And I know some parts of the country have that, some don't. Just kind of depends. So yeah, stay safe, man. I really am thinking about you a lot. All right, so that wraps it up for my results. Let me just look at the Backlash card. Here's what we have. I think we only have 3 matches officially announced by WWE. Maybe 4, actually. Maybe 3 or 4. Anyway, we know we're going to get Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley. I don't know if that's official or not. We're getting Braun Strowman in a handicap match, defending the title against Miz and Morrison. Asuka is going to be defending the title against Nia Jax. And I speculated and predicted last week that Asuka will not be dropping the belt to her. I don't see it. And we have the world's greatest wrestling match, or the greatest wrestling match ever, whatever it's called, between Randy Orton and Edge. I'm assuming we're getting Street Profits and Viking Raiders, and probably 3 other matches or something like that. So that's kind of what it's looking like right now. You guys can help me out and add some to that if there's any that I'm missing. Trying to think what else. Oh, and Jeff Hardy and Sheamus. I'm almost certain of it after what we saw last night that they will add Hardy and Sheamus to the Backlash card as well. So that's about 6 matches, and we'll probably have about 8 or 9. So not a horrible looking card, but not great. Neither one of those title matches are intriguing to me. I don't think Drew is going to be dropping the belt yet to Lashley, although I like that Lashley might be in line for his biggest push to date, hooking up with MVP like this and all of that. But I don't know. I don't see it. Drew just won at WrestleMania in grand fashion. I don't see it yet, but we'll see. And I certainly don't see Strowman dropping the belt to the Miz and Morrison. No way. I'm hoping that the Fiend can kind of get back involved there at some point. Oh, you're in Ohio. Okay. Gotcha, Dante Zim. Oh, yeah. Well, stay safe in Ohio, man. Yeah, I'm originally from Michigan. I don't know, Victor Colon. I don't think so. Do I think WWE did that segment with Jeff Hardy to protect Jeff so he didn't have to lose the match in the tournament? Maybe, but I think they could have also done it another way or something too. They could have just done an attack. Sheamus could have just attacked him, backstage. They could have done that. You see that all the time where the camera just cuts to somebody and they're already laid out. Who attacked him? Who attacked him? They could have just done that and been lazy. It seems like if that was the only reason, just to protect him from a loss, they took the long way to get there. They could have done something a lot simpler. So since the angle was complex, I'm kind of hoping the reasons behind it were also complex. And I think they could have protected him without going that far, basically, is what I'm saying. So I don't know. You might be right, but I think it's got a bigger purpose, I think. Ray versus Seth Rollins at Backlash. Yeah, either that or Alistair. Now, Ray is doing the retirement ceremony Monday, which we know is bullshit. So it'll either be a ploy or something like that, or he'll really retire really retire in kayfabe only to come back in a few weeks and either set something up for Backlash or set something up for SummerSlam. Maybe he stays retired for the summer, but then Seth does something and he comes back and attacks him and has a match with him at SummerSlam. I don't know. So yeah, Seth versus Ray is likely for Backlash, especially in light of Ray's announcement that we're going to get on Monday night. But if for any reason they prolong the Ray BS retirement, then I'd go maybe Seth and Alistair. Yeah. Seth and Ray's got to be the way it is. I mean, especially after that vicious attack on his eyeball. Got to have a match. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, Ultra Instinct. I don't know why you would hate ex-WWE people going to AEW. We talked about that with the Revival. The Revival wanted to go there. They weren't cast off by WWE as rejects and AEW scooped them up. They've been trying to get out of, they've been turning down 750-year deals, 750K per year deals, just to go somewhere else where they can be used better. That's always not a valid argument. TNA was guilty of that. They used to bring in everybody, and it used to frustrate the hell out of me. I'm like, there are some people that you cannot not sign. You have to bring them in. If you can, you got to sign Rusev if you can. You got to sign the Revival. They're great, but you don't need to sign everybody. But I think that's a flimsy critique that I don't think people understand. Where do you think these wrestlers are going to come from? You need some notable names, especially if you're on cable TV. And if they have value and they can add something to your show, there's no reason you should not sign them. It doesn't matter where they come from. So I don't really agree with that at all. Hey, there's Dan Price. What's up, man? Thanks for the $2. Dan is the guy that's done some fan art for me. Check out his Instagram down below. He's got all sorts of good stuff. He's a talented artist, dude, and I appreciate the $2. Yeah, people just want an excuse to hate AEW, which I think is silly. There's no reason to, as a wrestling fan, as an unbiased wrestling fan like myself, which I really honestly truly feel like I am. I don't have any reason to hate him, but I also don't have much reason to hate WWE too. I think it's so silly to be on so definitively on one side of that fence and so obviously on one side of that fence. Even if you're closeted, you can still smell it, right out of them. I'm just trying to watch wrestling shows and be happy with them and enjoy them. I don't care which brand gives me the better show. I just want a good show. If NXT entertains me, if Raw entertains me, if Smackdown entertains me, great. If Dynamite entertains me, great. I just want to be entertained. And if they're great, I'll praise them both. And if they suck, I'll critique them both. Just the way we should all do it. And I don't know why it's not like that on social media. It should be. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate the $2. Ray retires. Seth beats up Ray's son and comes back. Yeah, I think Dominic could get involved. I've been pitching a Dominic heel turn for a long time, all the way back to the Samoa Joe days. So I don't know if we're going to see that, but I think Ray, might at least have a tag with his son. And that could set up something at SummerSlam or maybe even July. I don't know. Yeah, see, that's the thing, especially I appreciate that, Devlin. I really enjoy Wednesday nights because I like watching the shows and not knowing which one I'm going to like better instead of already deciding before the show even fucking airs which one you're going to like better. And no matter what you see, you're going to make a case for the side that you're on social media. And even if the show is unanimously not better than the other, according to the overall opinion, you're still going to find reasons to it just because you can't let go of your silly fucking tribal shit, where to me, I could give a rat's ass. I don't care which Wednesday night show is better. I don't care. No dog in the fight. If AEW gives me the better show, I'm happy. If NXT gives me the better show, I'm happy. I don't see the reason in not being happy. And then if the show I don't like won, then I got to go on social media or my podcast and pull reasons out of my ass why it wasn't as good, but you also have to remember saying whether or not a show is good or bad is your opinion. It's not a fact. Nobody's wrong in that. For me to say NXT was the better show, that's not a fact. There might be people this week that did like Dynamite better. I just wasn't one of them. So, if somebody says, oh, GoodMicWork, I liked AEW better, I'm like, okay, good. You have that right. But don't say to me, GoodMicWork, you're stupid. Everybody knows AEW is better. That's a fact. No, it's not. Opinions are not facts. It's very easy. So everybody is allowed to like and dislike whatever they want, but just don't claim that your opinion is the truth and nobody else's is. That's just self-centered, douchey bullshit that we see way too much of, not only on social media, but all over YouTube. I don't want to be like that. Bane, thank you for the $2, dude. Appreciate it. Kenny Omega versus Bret Hart. Who wins? Really tough. Well, if I do the math, carry the one. Yeah, fucking Bret Hart, 100%. Yes, Bret Hart. No, I'm kidding. Anybody who does a fantasy match against Bret Hart, Bret's going to win with me. So, sorry. But yeah, it's that would be good. It would be much like probably the closest thing to a Shawn Bret match we would get because the styles are different. I would like to see Kenny take the Bret Hart punches, take the Bret top rope clothesline, take all that stuff. That would be great. Maybe Kenny Omega versus Mr. Perfect might be one that's more fun. I'm still going to go Kurt Hennig on that, but that might be a more interesting match. I don't know. Omega and Bret. Man, Omega and Bret in Japan. How about that? How about that, Bane? I'd be down with that. Yeah, you can't do a fantasy match with Bret Hart. He's the only wrestler I've ever admitted to be a mark for. I was just a fangirl. I always was of Bret Hart. And then I kind of grew out of really caring about one particular wrestler as I got older and no longer became important to me. And I no longer have really a favorite. I have favorites. I love Taker and Jericho's on the list and, and Austin and all those guys. But I don't think I have one that's really above any of them. I just appreciate all their careers kind of as a whole. And I just kind of have a thing for Bret, from back in the day. And he did. Back in the 90s, he really did. It was really hard to describe how it was, but there really was a different type of connection there that he had with the audience. There was just a different connection that a lot of the wrestlers didn't have with their fans. And that's kind of, I think a lot of fans took to Brett, and a lot of them have the same kind of memories and feelings towards him that I did. He was just a really good, fun wrestler to watch and a great character. Thank you, Nick, for the $2. I appreciate it. Astronauts who left Earth today are some smart people. Yeah, they did a SpaceX launch, didn't they? I saw the live stream launch. I've seen those here in California. I think the one today was launched in Florida. But a couple of years ago, I even tweeted it because I'm driving to work. It's like 6 o'clock at night and it's dark. And I see one of these SpaceX rockets going across the sky. And it's got this, it looked like a comet. It's got this huge tail. And it's almost forming, it almost has like this shield going around it. But I had no idea it was a SpaceX rocket. I'm driving and I'm looking up. I'm like, what? And I got out my phone and I videotaped it. I'm like, as far as I know, this is an alien ship coming to get me. I knew they'd be back for me. And I'm in the car. I'm powerless to do anything. And I'm basically like filming it in case it's my last moments on Earth. I literally did not know what it was. And it was freaky looking. And it was so big going across the sky like that. Awesome. So I'm fascinated with that kind of stuff and space travel and some of the things we're able to do from a technology or technological standpoint, and amazing. So yeah, getting our space on. Very cool. Young Bucks versus the Rockers. Going Rockers. Although the Bucks are more decorated. The Bucks are definitely more decorated. And they're a team longer. So maybe I should pick the Bucks there, but when one member of a team is Shawn Michaels, you can't not pick him. Devlin, what's up, man? Thanks for the $2. What kind of car I got? I have a 2019 Lamborghini. Red. Tinted windows. Awesome. I got my vanity plate. Says Hot Stud on it. No, I'm kidding. I've got a Nissan. I got a 2019 Nissan Sentra that I bought a couple of years ago, or about a year and a half ago, that I'm thinking about trading in because I want to upgrade. I almost bought a Honda Civic, these cool little hatchbacks that I really like the looks of. It was just about like maybe $5,000 to $7,000 more than I really wanted to spend on a car. But now I'm kind of almost reconsidering it, and I might do a trade in here in the next several months and upgrade to something nicer. But I'm more of a practical guy. I'm not even a car guy. I don't really care. I just want something that works and that's new and I can play music in and drive back and forth to work. I'm not looking to, have any sort of muscle car or anything like that. I don't care. I just need something practical, affordable, and that's what I got. But I am thinking about upgrading. And then maybe one day I'll get the Lamborghini. Bob Jones. Might be my first time seeing your name. It's a very unique name. You don't see many Bob Jones. Man, what's your nationality? No, I'm kidding. That's a very common name. Thank you for the $2, dude. I appreciate it. Thoughts on Onision versus Hansen? I don't know who either one of those are. I've heard of the Onision name. He's a YouTuber, right? And who's Hansen? Like the boy band from the Bop Kids? Or is Hansen a YouTuber too? I don't know who they are. And I don't know any YouTubers. Like, I don't watch that dumb fuck Keemstar. I don't watch, what's this, Shane somebody. None of those guys, H3, all that stuff, I don't care about them. Don't watch them. Don't know anything about their lives. I think their lives, every time I see something going on, there's always some sort of like drama. And I'm like, who wants to get into that? Who wants to have like drama with like YouTube world drama? I like this universe that we all live in here inside of YouTube, but I don't want drama. Keep that away from me. So unfortunately, Bob Jones, I'm not knowledgeable on the subject. I am very sorry. Oh yeah, you said you're buying a car, right, Devlin? Damn, you got it for $2,000? Sweet. Yeah, mine was bought almost new, so I'm paying payments on mine. But yeah, Devlin, yeah, I've never seen husband as a last name before, so yeah, yours is very, very different. No, probably not, Ryan. No watch along for Takeover. I'm gonna do a review for sure. Probably not a watch along though. I'd rather do a review so we can talk about it and discuss it and that sort of thing. I think I'll save the watch-alongs for cool pay-per-view concepts, like the Money in the Bank. I think I did one for Money in the Bank, Royal Rumbles, stuff like that. Oh, Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen, the pedophile guy? I don't know about that either. I know nothing. I literally know nothing. I don't even know why you guys listen to me. Hey, well, somebody give me like one more like so I can at least get to 100 likes. You got like 1,000 people in the chat here. Hook me up with a like. Somebody, do it. Thank you, Zane, for the $5. I appreciate it. Rumors on SummerSlam being in September. Will it affect WWE's pay-per-views going forward? Maybe, because if you do SummerSlam in September, you might have to cancel one of your other ones. I like SummerSlam being in September if it's able to stay in Boston. Like, because otherwise there'd be no reason to postpone the show. Or if they're postponing it in September so they can have fans. So maybe Boston's out, but maybe there's a chance they can have an audience in the arena in September somewhere. So that's why they're postponing it. The only way I'd be cool with it being postponed is if it brings fans. And they can maybe attach the Hall of Fame that we missed this year at WrestleMania to that and make a weekend of it. Then yeah, I'm okay with it being postponed. But if fans still can't be in the arena, you might as well just do it in August. Doesn't matter, my opinion. Chris Andrade, thank you, man. Appreciate the $2. Randy Savage is the greatest wrestler ever. I would agree with you if it wasn't for Bret Hart. He is my number 2. He is, I think, my number 2 of all time. I have always loved Randy Savage. I have great memories of him. I saw his biggest moments as they happened. I watched him beat Tito live for the Intercontinental title. I was in the attendance at WrestleMania for the Savage Steamboat match. I watched his title win on pay-per-view at WrestleMania 4, very first pay-per-view I ever purchased. I stayed up late and watched the Saturday Night's main event 5 months prior to that, where Savage took on Honky Tonk, and they hit him with the guitar, and Elizabeth got shoved down, and she brought out Hogan, and he saved him, and the Mega Powers formed. I saw everything that Savage did, literally, at least in WWE, as it happened. I watched the Savage Bret Hart Saturday Night's main event match as well, live. Stayed up late. I remember sitting on my living room floor watching it in one of those old school TVs that had that big wooden frame around it, and watched Bret Hart work over Savage's foot and ankle, and Savage getting a small package for a victory. So Savage would be my favorite if it weren't for Bret. It's really hard to vote against him because he was just one of my all-time favorites. And of course, Ms. Elizabeth was an angel, and she should still be here. Giant Gonzalez, my God. For in the Hall of Fame best wrestler ever. I don't know. Maybe. Fall Slam. That's a good name for it. If you're going to move it to fall, better call it Fall Slam. Yeah, you could. And if you couldn't figure out a way to get the Hall of Fame attached to SummerSlam, maybe you could do it at Survivor Series. I'd be into that too. Then you'd have 2 Hall of Fames pretty close back to back. You'd be doing one late in the year and then doing one at the beginning of the year at WrestleMania next year. But it's kind of what you have to do considering the circumstances. We'll see. I'm curious how long it's going to take. For me personally in my job, I'm back to work now and we've got guidelines, but we get new information every couple of days with new guidelines. And sometimes guidelines that were in the previous packet aren't in the new one. So you can kind of feel like life's slowly coming back to earth. It's coming back to life. It's still dangerous out there, but places are taking precautions now. And, we're just going to have to live our lives differently, but we can start doing things again. People are traveling. I saw somebody take a video on an airplane of a packed full flight, not one empty seat, and like 3 people out of the 300 in the plane were wearing a mask. I couldn't believe it. I'm still nervous to travel, even though I would love to. Plane tickets are dirt cheap right now. So I would love to take a trip. It's just I'm not ready. I'm not ready to travel quite yet. But you can see, life kind of coming back and getting some sort of semblance of normal. And like where I work, these people are so over it. And that's what I'm worried about, because in America, we're stupid. And when we're bored with something, we decide it's over, and that's going to get us in trouble. So it might not be everywhere in the country, but my little pocket where I live, a lot of these people have money, and a lot of people are just like, I'm not going to accept a virus, and I'm going to go out and do whatever I want to do. They're not taking any precautions. They don't care. And if they get sick, they're going to fucking regret it. And I just, I think people are just so itching to get life back to normal. This has not been fun. I think when fans are allowed back in the arenas, I think they're going to go. I really do. I mean, listen to me. Earlier on in the episode here, I was talking about going on the Jericho cruise, which is probably a horrible idea to go on a boat, especially in light of what's going on. I don't think anything's going to be really over with by the time we get to January next year. And, but you also want to live your life. You want to do things, and you don't want anything holding you back. So it's got to be a balance between, yes, live your life, but don't be stupid at the same time. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out right now in the world. So we'll see. I'm hoping, though, we get an audience back. I've really missed them in in the crowd there, but WWE's got plexiglass and all this shit up. It just feels like we're still quite a ways away. But it's not even June yet. You know, June's not until Monday. So we still have all of June, all of July, you know, to kind of see where the rest of the summer goes. And then it'll be August. And then we're getting closer to fall. And then you were talking holidays again. So, you know, it's crazy. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Oh, God, I think you were coughing on the plane and everybody panicked. Yeah, I mean, if I was on a plane, I'd definitely be wearing a mask. Just to make the others around me feel a little bit better in case I do cough or I do sneeze. You know, if you don't have a mask on and you let some obnoxious sneeze out, I'd be pissed. I'd give you an elbow, I'd give you a Judas effect right to the face if you did that to me and you were sitting in the seat next to me. So out of the courtesy of others, I'm wearing a mask, you know, more for them than myself, which amazes me how many people are anti-mask when it's really kind of done for people around you's benefit, you know, and everybody's like, oh, my freedom or whatever. Oh, my God. Yeah, I want this all to go away just because the insane inconvenience that it causes for all of us. Oh, really, Devlin? Okay, can't take a leave in the military right now, and that isn't set to expire till December, I believe. Well, hopefully that'll cause no problems for your cruise stuff. I don't think it will. Hopefully it won't. Yeah, I can't wait to go out with for some beers with my friends again. Yeah, a lot of people, we can't, in my restaurant, we can't open our bar. So we can't have anybody in the bar. They can't sit in the bar. We basically just use it as a big giant service well for all the servers to go in and out of and take stuff. So we're not even allowed to let people in. So the restaurants that are open, I think that's kind of the rule right now. We've got everything spaced 6 feet apart, and we're only at about 25% capacity, and we can't have people in the bar. We can sell as much alcohol as we want, but we can't have anybody in there. But I have seen people come in and just want to get a table and sit down and have drinks. And sometimes I have to tell them no. I'm like, look, you know, we got a lot of people coming in, and they want to have dinner. I know you want to sit here and have a couple of beers, but I can't have you taking up this big table and spending $30, you know, when I can have somebody sitting here spending $1,000. So you got to get the F out. So yeah, bars coming back into business, I think, is going to be big for a lot of people when that finally happens. All right, and now that I've been going a solid 2 hours, I'm probably going to wrap up business and get out of here. I've got to finish putting together just the final bells and whistles. I got 2 I's to dot and 2 T's to cross, and then I'm going to upload tomorrow's review, and I have already let the cat out of the bag on that and on social media and in my streams. It is going to be a review of the very short-lived promotion, Wrestling Society X, that aired on MTV back in 2007. Did a fun review on that. It's basically done. I just got to upload it, and that's going to premiere tomorrow morning, like a live premiere, so you guys can chat and all that stuff. It's going to be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. my time, and it'll be 1 p.m. on the East Coast. And Devlin, for you, it'll be 7 a.m., so you might not be awake. Well, you're in the military. Maybe you would. Oh, of course, Devlin, I'll hook you up with a discount. Hell yeah. Bane, thank you for another $5, man. I appreciate it. Just want to say I've listened to your YouTube video since 2013. Wow, hands down the best wrestling content creator. Thanks, Greg. Well, thank you, Bane. Appreciate you stopping in a couple times today and telling me that. I always love listening to how long people have been with me, you know, because some have been like, hey, I found you 6 months ago, and some are like, I found you 6 years ago, and some are like, I found you 8 years ago. So that's very cool. Very cool. Zane, thank you for another $5, dude. I appreciate it. If this pandemic would have happened around Rumble time, would it have eased up by now or same or worse? Oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it pretty much did happen around Rumble time. It was already happening. It's just it wasn't until March until real action was taken. I'm glad it didn't happen at Rumble time, though, because I went to the Jericho cruise like the week before, and that might have been compromised. But yeah, we'd probably be maybe a little bit closer maybe to the light at the end of the tunnel, maybe, but we still don't know where that light is, you know, and at one point we're going to say, all right, this is just a threat that's going to exist, and all we can do is be cautious and testing and wear your mask and wash your hands and sanitize and all that stuff and distance, and hopefully it'll phase out and we'll find a vaccine and a cure and all that stuff. But I think I don't think it'll be worse, you know, but I think be probably close to the same if you just backed up a couple of months. And plus we have the winter time coming up in like 3 months. Once we get into October, a lot of parts of the country start getting cold again, and then there's that talk of that second wave. So I don't know. We'll see, man. Oh yeah, you will be sleeping, Devlin? That's good. Yeah, Wrestling Society X, it was crazy. I even asked on Twitter, I was actually kind of concerned yesterday because I thought about the Edge and Orton match at WrestleMania with the weight bench spot, and then right after Shad Gaspard died, they kind of did the drowning thing on the Stadium Stampede. And in my episode tomorrow, my thumbnail and my overlay is just loaded with like explosions and fire. And I was like, should I postpone this a week? You know, I mean, because I understand maybe it's just a little insensitive right now. You know, maybe it's nothing to get worried about. I don't think any of you guys would really care, but I think we're all trying to get away from that. The last thing we want to visualize right now is explosions and fire, and that's going to be what 90% of tomorrow's episodes is going to be about. So all I did is in the beginning of the episode last night, I inserted a little disclaimer, just acknowledging the horrible murder of George Floyd. And I understand if this is a video, you want to come back and look at it another time, but I decided not to postpone it because the gentleman, Glenn, that donated to have it done has already been waiting a while. So I didn't want to make him wait anymore. Plus it's done. And I didn't want it just to be sitting here for no reason. So I at least offered a little disclaimer at the beginning saying, hey, you're about to see a lot of fire. Hope that's not too much right now. And if you don't want to see it, come back in a couple of weeks when things settle down and watch the video then. But it was definitely a fun review to do and a really crazy show to watch. I wasn't very kind to it, to be honest with you. We had fun in the review. Tomorrow's going to be a fun review, but very little of it was me praising what I saw. I was mostly making fun of it and laughing at it and stuff like that. So anyway, yes, X-Pac was there. Wrestling is Six-Pac, a very young Scorpio Sky was there. Vampiro, Ricky Banderas, Matt Sydal. Oh, God, I saw Vic Grimes. Lots of talent was the talent. And a very young Seth Rollins and Jimmy Jacobs, Joey Ryan. Lots of people were on that show. So the talent was actually there. There was nothing at all wrong with the talent. It was just the way the whole thing is produced. And it was kind of had like a, I say this in the review tomorrow, it kind of has like an Iron Chef vibe, maybe a little bit of a Lucha Underground and a little bit of Iron Chef, like the original Iron Chef that used to air on the Food Network years ago, like the Japanese version, you know, when they would do like cuts with the camera and it would go like whoosh, you know, and have all this like just really in your face, just like high energy ADD type of stuff is all this was. It was just really in your face, really loud, way too much. And I had to watch 10 episodes of that shit. So that's going to be a fun review tomorrow morning. All right, so that is officially, yes, and Dan, Human Tornado, was in that as well, which he was great. I saw he was doing a lot of good stuff in there. So tune in tomorrow morning to my channel and watch along with us. And I'm on camera for that too. I'm on camera with some B-roll in and out. So it won't be, like a typical podcast, but it is edited and is uploaded and it won't be a live stream. But it will be premiering so you can do all the chatting and all that goodness. So look for that tomorrow. That's it for me, guys. I appreciate you hanging out on another fun Saturday afternoon loaded podcast. Good episode. We covered a lot of ground here. I think it was a success. I'll go ahead and throw the audio to this up on my website and on all the podcast sites later on tonight. So keep a lookout for that if you want to download it. And you guys have a good rest of your night and weekend. I will catch you tomorrow morning for a fun look at Wrestling Society X. Y'all be good. Peace.